Makoto stands in a dark, unfamiliar place, wondering where he is and if he might be dreaming. He notices the sacred stone in his hand, glowing with a strange color he has never seen before. As a black feather falls in front of him, he looks up and sees a woman with large black wings floating in the air. But before this meeting, let us go back to where it all began. In a distant realm, two mighty forces rule, demons and divine spirits. Their endless war once tore the world apart and ended in the victory of demons. About 10 years ago, they turned their attention to the human world. Humans, weak and unprepared, faced extinction as the demon armies marched through their gates. Then the divine spirits appeared, filling humans with the courage to fight and granting them divine strength. Humans joined with the remaining spirits through sacred stones, creating bonds that allowed them to wield divine power. These chosen ones were called hunters, and the future of humanity rested in their hands. Now, 10 kilometers outside Tokyo, a group of hunters stands before a glowing gate. Rank D hunter Hino tells the team it is an E-rank dungeon and advises them to check their gear. Rank D hunter Kamiya agrees and asks if everything is ready. Rank D hunter Mito confirms that all equipment is set. Their eyes turn to Makoto Asuka, an F-rank hunter who carries their supplies with extras for safety. Makoto assures them everything is in order. Laughing, Kamiya comments that it is easier with him around. Mito teases Makoto, calling him a wannabe hunter and telling him to leave the fighting to them. Used to the insult, Makoto stays quiet. For hunters chosen by spirits, a sacred stone appears in their hands, and they form a bond with the spirit that reveals itself. 2 years ago, Makoto received his own stone. Believing it made him a true hunter, he swore to grow stronger and never face another tragedy again. His resolve was born from a gate break years ago, where his parents were killed by demons. Receiving the stone gave him hope. A year later, in a park, Makoto practices swinging his sword 1,000 times within an hour. Pleased with his training, he prepares to run 20 kilometers when a blonde man notices him and points him out to a dark-haired friend. The friend calls Makoto a fake hunter. The blonde asks if it is true that even after 2 years, no divine spirit has chosen him. The dark-haired man nods, saying, Makoto is a waste of a sacred stone, a failure even worse than normal people. Makoto hears them, but continues training without reacting. Later, in an alley, Makoto is thrown into a trash bin by a man yelling that he is tired of fighting while babysitting him. Makoto says he can fight too, but the man scoffs, telling him that without a divine spirit, it is useless. He warns Makoto to stop pretending to be a hunter, saying it shames real hunters. They leave him alone in the freezing night near the trash, wondering why his stone never responded to him even after 2 years. Unable to form a pact, Makoto is left rejected by both hunters and ordinary people. Back in the present, inside the dungeon, monsters burst into flames from Hino's lower-ranked divine spirit, Flam. Hino shouts that one demon is escaping, and a strong wind arrow flies from another side, hitting it. That is Mito's lower-ranked divine spirit. Okamiya fights with his own divine spirit, Fall. Soon, all demons are defeated. Mito asks if that is the last one, saying how easy it was. Hino laughs, saying it shows how strong they have become. Hino suddenly spots a demon sneaking behind Makoto and yells a warning. Makoto turns just in time, dodging the attack, reminding himself that he is a hunter too. He swings his sword and shouts that he will take it down. His blade hits but does no damage. The demon mocks him, grabbing his sword and lifting it easily. Makoto realizes attacks without a spirit's power are useless. The demon throws the sword aside and strikes, but Hino reacts fast, burning it to ash with his spirit's flames. Hino asks if Makoto is fine. Calming down, Makoto apologizes and thanks him. Hino pats his shoulder, telling him not to worry and saying his moves were good. Shocked, Makoto says he trains every day so he can be ready when his spirit appears. Hino nods, saying he hopes that happens soon. Makoto thanks him, thinking the words are just kindness. Moments later, they reach the dungeon's deepest room. Hino says the boss is behind the next gate. He asks Makoto if he knows about demons with strange habits. Makoto asks if he means those that can be defeated by learning those habits. Hino nods, raising his hand. Suddenly, Hino grabs Makoto tight while Mito aims her arrow at him. Confused, Makoto struggles but cannot break free. Hino opens the gate and says that some demons fall asleep right after eating. Kamiya kicks Makoto inside, calling him food, while Mito says she will leave the rest to Hino. Makoto shouts for them to stop, but Hino taunts him, saying that someone like him could never form a pact and that this is a fitting end for a fake hunter. They close the door, locking him inside. Makoto bangs on it, yelling for them to open it. He curses himself for not realizing their betrayal earlier. Then a loud growl echoes behind him. Turning around, he sees the huge form of the E-rank boss, the Behemoth, moving toward him. Trembling, he can hardly believe it. The Behemoth slashes at him, and he barely dodges, running as fast as he can while screaming. Outside, his former teammates laugh and play, unaware of his fight. Hidden in the smoke, the Behemoth stops, confused when it sees nothing. Makoto looks around, searching for a way out. He knows he cannot defeat it, but sees that the beast has not fully awakened yet, giving him a small chance. Spotting a narrow path, he runs toward it, but the Behemoth roars, shaking the dungeon and bringing down the ceiling. The rubble blocks his escape. He stares in disbelief, refusing to accept it. The Behemoth charges again, its claws tearing through the floor. He stands frozen, the sight of its massive jaws filling him with terror. Despair rises as he realizes he has achieved nothing. He has not even avenged his parents. At that moment, the sacred stone in his hand glows with dark energy. Shouting that he will not die here, the stone bursts with power. A wave of black light spreads around him, forming a shadow barrier. The Behemoth halts, trembling in fear. The dark energy wraps around Makoto, pulling him away. In an instant, he finds himself in another place. Uncertain if it is real or a dream, he looks at the sacred stone now glowing with a sinister color unlike before. A woman with enormous black wings appears before him. She reaches out her hand, calling him human, and asks if he will form a pact with her. Makoto looks at her in confusion, but she urges him to hurry, saying their space will not hold much longer. Standing before him, she asks if he will form the pact or not. He wonders if she is his divine spirit and realizes that if she is, then his answer is clear. He declares that he will form the pact and fight by her side. Reaching for her hand, she accepts it, telling him that with this, their bond is sealed. Dark energy flows from her into his sacred stone, and he feels something crawling through him, realizing that this is what a pact feels like. After forming the bond, he steadies himself, facing the Behemoth as the strange dark realm fades away. Gripping his sword tightly, he shouts that they are ready. The Behemoth growls, the sound shaking him, and he notices that its power seems stronger than before. As the beast charges forward, he braces himself, thinking he is no longer the same as moments ago. When it lunges, he leaps aside and lands far behind it with only a light push off the ground. He stares in shock, thinking this must be the power of a divine spirit. He lifts his sword, filled with excitement, saying it is his turn to attack. But he stops when he realizes he does not yet know what powers his spirit grants him. Panic fills him as the Behemoth appears behind him. He dodges quickly, calling to the spirit in his mind, asking what her power is. A voice answers, startling him. She admits she forgot to mention it, making him shout in frustration to focus. She snaps back that he never asked, and he yells that this is not the time for arguments. The Behemoth's claws crash into the ground behind him, breaking it apart, but Makoto jumps away in time. Remembering the dark energy from before, he asks if that is her ability. She confirms, and dark shadows burst from his sacred stone. She tells him the power is called Rebellion Shadow, explaining that it allows him to control shadows freely, and that if he focuses, he will instinctively know what to do. Makoto closes his eyes and concentrates. Dark shadows rise from his hand, forming into a long blade, leaving him amazed. She says that it is a shadow weapon, and that for now, he can turn shadows into weapons. Smiling, he grips the dark sword tighter, thanking her, saying this is all he needs to fight. Turning to the Behemoth, Makoto mocks it, asking if it is waiting for him, and says it will not get any chances this time. The beast roars, swinging its huge tail and smashing the ground as it rushes toward him. He swings his sword back, then slashes forward, meeting the attack. In one swift strike, he cuts through the Behemoth's tail, leaving it roaring in pain. As the severed piece crashes down, the beast glares at him in fury, then freezes as it sees a dark, monstrous figure with glowing eyes behind him. Makoto dashes forward with fierce resolve, shouting that he is not done yet. He swings at its head, but the Behemoth jerks back, dodging the blow. He realizes it has learned his attack range and jumps high into the air. The creature retreats to create distance, but Makoto extends his weapon midair, reshaping it into a longer blade, and slashes from afar, cutting into its limbs. As the Behemoth screams and collapses, Makoto feels a surge of triumph, noting that his weapon can freely change shape. Facing the wounded monster, he leaps again, recalling his teammates' cruel words, calling him useless and fake, saying he could never form a pact. Now he knows they were wrong. Reshaping his sword into a massive cleaver, he feels his strength has been leading to this moment. With one decisive slash, he brings it down, splitting the Behemoth in two. Its heavy body crashes lifeless to the ground. Makoto stares at it, stunned by his own power. His weapon fades, and with shaking hands, he lets out a breath of relief, overjoyed that he has finally defeated a demon. Drained, he drops to the floor, looking at his sacred stone, and asks the woman if they can now speak. Shadows rise from the stone, and she appears before him. Makoto thanks her, saying she saved him. She replies that she only lent her power, and that he was the one who fought. Shaking his head, he thanks her again, grateful she accepted the pact. As she watches him silently, he praises her power, saying the ability to command shadows is surely proof she is a high-ranking spirit. Defeating an E-rank boss must make her special. She pauses for a moment before finally revealing the truth. She is not a divine spirit, but a demon. The realization leaves Makoto stunned, filled with shock and confusion. Demons have destroyed countless divine spirits and pushed the human world to the brink of ruin. In response, humans form pacts with divine spirits, becoming hunters to combat the threat. Makoto asks her, puzzled, if she is not a divine spirit but a demon. Clenching her arms tightly, concern clear in her expression, Makoto presses her, saying he needs more details. But before she can answer, the boss room door creaks open, and voices fill the air as someone remarks that Makoto must have been defeated by now. Mito tells her team with certainty that Makoto is likely inside the boss's stomach by this point. But they all freeze, surprised and confused when they see him standing there. Makoto furiously calls out to them, demanding answers, while Kamiya stares in disbelief, asking how he is still alive, and Mito questions him about the boss's whereabouts. Hino then shouts, realizing that Makoto must have formed a pact. Kamiya, suddenly worried, asks Hino what they should do. Hino curses, knowing that if Makoto reports what has happened, they will be in serious trouble. The three hunters activate their divine powers, aiming them at Makoto as Hino shouts that they have no choice but to eliminate him. Stunned, Makoto shouts back, asking the woman's name. Caught off guard, she stammers as she introduces herself as Rinoa. With resolve, Makoto tells her that is enough for now, and requests her power once more. Rinoa, stunned by his determination, agrees. Summoning his shadow weapon, Makoto forms a sword. Hino, attempting to rally his team, dismisses Makoto as a weakling and urges them to finish him quickly. Just then, Hino's divine spirit, Flamme, interrupts, asking if Hino truly plans to fight that thing. Surprised, Hino asks Flamme if it is scared, but Flamme warns him, calling him a fool for not noticing the abnormality of Makoto's divine spirit. Mito's divine spirit, O, trembles, admitting it has never seen anything like it before, while Kamiya's divine spirit, Fall, remarks that Makoto's pact is on a completely different level, leaving Kamiya in disbelief. Hino, now alarmed, asks Flamme what kind of spirit Makoto has formed a pact with. Flamme explains that it is not clear who she is, but she wields the strength of a top-class divine spirit. Shocking everyone, Makoto glances at Rinoa, realizing what this means. Divine spirits are classified into ranks, lower, middle, upper, and top class, with only a rare few reaching the highest level of strength. These spirits are known as the strongest among their kind. Curious, Makoto asks Rinoa who she truly is, but she gestures ahead, saying there is no time for explanations. Following her gaze, he sees Hino preparing to attack, Flamme surrounding him. Hino shouts, refusing to believe he can be weaker than a worthless loser, and reasons that since Makoto's pact is freshly made, he must still be weak, with only the boss as his first real opponent. Mito hesitates, noting that while hunters do grow stronger by defeating demons, there is still uncertainty. Kamiya adds that if Makoto has truly formed a pact with a top-class spirit, they will not stand a chance. Hino, furious, calls his team cowards and leaps forward, dashing straight at Makoto with Flamme surging around his fist, shouting that he will show Makoto the power of a true hunter. Hino swings his fist, but Makoto waits calmly for the strike to approach before sidestepping it with ease. Hino attacks again, throwing a series of flaming punches, but Makoto dodges each one effortlessly, barely breaking a sweat as he anticipates every move. When Hino's fist comes close to his face, accompanied by the skill Flame Spirit Breath, Makoto swings his shadow sword forward, slicing cleanly through the flames. The sight leaves Hino and the others in shock. Makoto taunts Hino, asking if he is holding back, which only fuels Hino's anger. In rage, Hino shouts at him not to get cocky, calling him a weakling who has only gotten lucky by forming a pact with a powerful spirit. Makoto grits his teeth, responding that what he has gained is not luck. Unlike them, he has not given up despite how long it has taken him to form a pact. Enraged, Hino curses and releases a powerful burst of flames, shouting that he will burn Makoto to ashes with his secret technique. He urges his team to fight alongside him. reminding them that if they do not finish Makoto now, they are finished. Trembling, Mito activates her divine power, reluctantly agreeing that they have no choice, while Kamiya, equally fearful, curses under his breath and joins in. Hino activates Flame Spirit's Roar, Mito activates her Water Spirit's Grand Archer, and Kamiya summons Thunder Spirit's Great Spear. Together, they unleash their special skills in unison, causing a massive explosion that shatters the ground and sends up clouds of smoke and debris. As the smoke clears, Mito asks nervously if they might have gone too far, while Hino laughs triumphantly, declaring that in the end, trash is still trash. But as the dust settles, their expressions change to disbelief. Makoto stands there, unmoved and unscathed, calmly explaining that he has cut through all their attacks and that the boss's speed has been far more formidable. He takes a step forward, closing the distance, and asks if they are now prepared to face him. Hino freezes, fear seizing him as he glimpses Renoa's intense gaze within Makoto. Summoning his courage, Hino creates a flame and warns Makoto not to mess with him, hurling fireballs his way while calling him a pathetic wannabe hunter. Makoto bends low, dodging each flame as he advances swiftly toward Hino. As he closes in, Hino panics, tries to speak, but Makoto hides his shadow weapon, then launches a punch directly at Hino's stomach, sending him flying back and leaving him coughing up blood. Looking down at him, Makoto states firmly that he is a hunter. Hino slams into the ground near his teammates, trembling before he collapses. Makoto coldly orders them to take Hino and leave, warning them not to speak a word of what has happened. In a panic, Mito and Kamiya quickly grab Hino and flee, fear evident in their eyes. As the dust settles, Makoto's sacred stone glows, and Renoa appears, remarking with a soft smile that she cannot believe he resorted to punching Hino. He replies that cutting him down was unnecessary, thanking her for standing by his side in the fight. She smiles warmly at him, and he reminds her that they are in the middle of an important conversation. She nods in agreement as he asks her to explain how she is not a divine spirit, but, in fact, a demon. With a serious expression, Renoa clenches her hands tightly and replies that she understands, preparing to tell him the truth. Renoa explains that she was once a divine spirit from the angel race, but after a certain event, she falls from grace and becomes a demon. Makoto listens in surprise, reflecting on how crazy that sounds since angels are top-tier divine spirits, and hearing that one turned into a demon is wild. She goes on to say that the reason she can form a pact with him is because of her past as a divine spirit, though why her sacred stone ended up with him is still a mystery. Everything about their meeting feels off, but Makoto tells her that he understands her situation. Renoa admits that no matter how much she hides it, she is still a demon, and offers to end the pact if he feels uneasy. As she says this, she grips her arm and trembles slightly, but Makoto notices. With a sigh, he sits beside her and introduces himself properly as Makoto Asuka, an 18-year-old hunter. Renoa is surprised, asking why he's suddenly introducing himself, but he says that he knows she isn't bad and doesn't plan to cancel the pact. She's stunned but smiles when he says that this is his way of showing he's counting on her. Calling him a strange human, she accepts, and he smiles before getting up and suggesting they head back together. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, two demons watch from afar, one mocking Renoa for betraying them, while the other laughs it off, saying it doesn't change their plans. The first one smirks, saying that it's at least entertaining. Back in Tokyo, Makoto enters his small apartment, opens the door to room 3003, and flicks on the lights. The room is basic, just a bed, table, and a few boxes. He tells Renoa to sit wherever she likes. She looks around, unimpressed, saying it's hard to believe humans live in places like this. Makoto asks if something's wrong, and she replies that it reminds her of demon caves, just places to block the wind and rain. He laughs and says it's only a place to sleep, asking if she likes anything in particular. Confused at first, she says she likes beautiful scenery. He notices her looking out the window and suggests adding flowers there. She says that's a nice idea and compliments his taste. Makoto then says that they should buy a new flower each time they clear a dungeon, which makes her smile. Feeling tired, he says that he's going to bed early. When he moves toward the bed, Renoa lies on it too, saying it's small for two people. Makoto blushes, asking if she plans to sleep with him. She says that in the angelic realm, sharing a bed is normal. He asks if divine spirits even need sleep, and she admits she doesn't think so he tells her to return to her sacred stone. She agrees, says goodnight, and disappears. Makoto looks at the stone for a moment before lying down. He thinks about what to do next, since if anyone finds out he made a pact with a demon, he's done for. He decides to move solo for now, starting with an F-rank dungeon, the only one he can handle alone. The next day, at the Japanese Hunter Association, He walks in with Rinoa, hidden in his glove. He asks if she feels any pressure, but she says she's fine and that hiding the purple stone is smart since it would attract attention. He goes to the counter to register for an F-rank dungeon when the crowd suddenly goes wild. Everyone turns as the famous S-rank hunter Amagi Yugo strolls in with a bottle of alcohol, casually drinking like it's a Monday morning smoothie. Hunters swarm around asking for autographs while Yugo laughs and says the place is lively as always. Yugo's eyes then land on Makoto, and he walks over. Makoto recognizes him instantly and freezes as Yugo asks for his name and rank. Makoto confirms that Yugo is talking to him and introduces himself as Makoto Asuka, an F-rank hunter. Yugo tilts his head, clearly doubting it, and asks if he's really F-rank. Confused, Makoto asks if Yugo needs something, and Yugo says that he does. He then turns to the assistant, apologizing for interrupting, and smoothly tells her they should have tea sometime before leaving. As he walks off, he calls over his shoulder that he and Makoto will meet again. The assistant is left speechless, fangirling over the fact that Yugo spoke to her, while Makoto just stands there wondering if he got flirted with by an S-rank legend. After snapping back to reality, he finishes his registration, takes the dungeon coordinates, and leaves, still trying to make sense of what just happened. He tells himself to stay focused, since this will be his first solo dungeon clear, even if it's only F-rank. When he reaches the dungeon gate, he double-checks the location before entering inside. The air feels heavier than usual. Rinoa's voice echoes, asking if F-rank demons are really the weakest, and he says yes, asking if she senses anything weird. Suddenly, something huge charges at him. Acting fast, he summons his shadow sword to block, but the force is insane, throwing him back. He lands hard but not too badly hurt. Rinoa checks if he's fine, and he says yes, though shocked, asking what just hit him. Then he sees it, a chaos wolf. He freezes, realizing that those are D-rank demons. Rinoa calmly says that this dungeon isn't normal, and Makoto realizes he might have just walked into the wrong dungeon. The wolves surround Makoto as he glances to the side, confirming that the gate is sealed. Rinoa comments that he understands the danger, and he replies that handling them all at once will be tough. Steeling himself, he extends his sword's length while Rinoa retreats to the sacred stone to avoid distraction. Forcing himself to stay calm, Makoto decides to think later and focus on cutting down their numbers first. He lunges forward to take out one target, but before he can strike, another wolf jumps from behind. He sidesteps fast, but another claw swipes at him from the side. Tilting his head forward, he barely dodges and sprints out of range. The wolves circle him again, and he watches their movements, realizing they're smart and coordinated. A real headache for someone just trying to survive. One wolf charges with its jaws open, while another follows from the side. Makoto blocks the first, but the second smacks him to the ground like a volleyball. As he lies there, he notes their strength and timing, understanding that they wait for the smallest opening before attacking. Rinoa watches from the sacred stone, her tone calm but serious, saying that she's thinking of something and tells him to watch the wolves closely. As they move in for another round, a risky idea forms in his mind. He deactivates his shadow weapon, exposing himself to bait them. Rinoa is alarmed, realizing that one wrong move could end him. The wolves pounce together, but right before they hit, Makoto reactivates his shadow sword, slicing through one wolf and two others in a single swing. He looks at his sword in disbelief, relieved that it worked. Rinoa reappears, praising his bold move and how he used his weakness as bait. He drops to the ground with a grin, saying that he wasn't even sure it would work. She then asks why the dungeon feels stronger than expected, and Makoto agrees, realizing it's not F rank, but D rank. Knowing it's way above his level, he still decides to keep going since the gate won't open until the boss is defeated. As they sense new movement, both freeze. Another pack of wolves appears, and Makoto's patience snaps. He just finished a round, and now more respawn like it's a video game on hard mode. Rinoa returns to the stone, saying that things are different now and tells him to try something new. She instructs him to raise his hand and focus on shadow chains, aiming at a wolf. He does, and dark chains shoot out, wrapping around the wolf's body. Rinoa explains that this is shadow bind, a skill that restrains enemies. Excited, Makoto drags the bound wolf closer and slices it in half like a pro. Another wolf lunges from behind, but he quickly casts shadow bind again, grabs the chain with his other hand, and swings the creature into the others. The wolves scatter, and Makoto laughs in disbelief, realizing how fun this new ability is. Rinoa praises him but warns that Shadowbind drains magic fast. He nods, saying that with this, he can push forward easily. After what feels like forever, Makoto drives his shadow sword into the ground and sighs, Finally done. He looks at the pile of wolves around him. Proud that he isn't even tired, Renoa reminds him that hunters grow stronger the more demons they defeat and says that his endurance shows progress. He looks at his hands and feels a rush of pride, knowing that he's leveling up fast. After catching his breath, he signals to Renoa that it's time to move. As they go deeper, she quietly watches him and feels impressed at how fast he's adapting. His quick thinking, sharp instincts, and gutsy moves remind her of his potential. Soon, they reach the deepest part of the dungeon where a massive gate stands before them. Makoto pauses, feeling his heartbeat quicken. Renoa appears beside him and asks what's wrong. He admits that he's nervous, but also excited since this is what being a hunter means, clearing dungeons and proving strength. She reminds him that this is only the beginning. He nods, gripping the gate and pushing it open. Stepping through without hesitation, he shuts the door behind him and looks up. The air turns heavy as he sees the boss of the dungeon, a towering hell scorpion waiting to test him. Its massive stinger rises as the hell scorpion growls in fury at Makoto's arrival, the air thick with tension as he trembles at the sight. The creature's armor gleams like carved minerals, and he wonders if it is tougher than steel. Renoa senses his fear and asks if he is scared, but he says that he is fine, blaming it on battle jitters instead. The scorpion suddenly lunges forward, slamming its tail into the ground and leaving a deep crater where he had stood seconds ago. Makoto dodges to the side, realizing how fast and precise its attacks are, knowing that even one direct hit would end him. A massive claw shoots toward him, and he barely blocks it with his shadow sword. He leaps onto its arm and slashes down, but the blade does nothing, confirming that the armor is ridiculously strong. The scorpion twists around in rage as Makoto jumps back to a safer spot, deciding to study its movements while dodging, since even the toughest armor should have weak points somewhere. Renoa watches from her realm, quiet and observant, as Makoto attacks again, aiming for its arms and tail, but still no luck. Putting all his strength into one strike, he goes for its head, yet no scratch marks the surface. The scorpion roars, sending a shockwave that makes him cover his ears in pain as the vibration rips through the air. Its tail suddenly transforms into crystal spikes, which it fires at him like bullets. Makoto sprints backward, feeling them graze his skin, his face twisting in disbelief because now the thing has ranged attacks too. He calls out to Renoa for ideas, and she calmly says that in his current state, it is almost impossible to damage it, meaning he has to go beyond his limits. The scorpion charges again, but Makoto reacts fast, using Shadowbind to chain its arms before slamming it into the wall hard enough to shake the entire cave. He exhales, realizing that if he had taken that hit, it would have been game over. As the scorpion turns, Makoto spots a crack on its head, and suddenly, it clicks. Maybe blunt force, not slashing, is the key. The beast roars again and charges with even wilder speed, but Makoto dodges while thinking fast. He realizes that the scorpion's attacks are getting fiercer and considers resizing his sword, then drops the idea since slicing won't help anyway. Renoa calls to him, reminding him of the first time he used his shadow weapon, and he instantly understands what she means. Remembering how he beat the last dungeon boss, he grins as the scorpion lunges with both claws aiming to crush him. He jumps high, but Renoa warns that he can't dodge midair. Right then, the scorpion fires another barrage of spikes. Instead of running, Makoto activates Shadowbind again, chaining its body as he pulls himself closer through the storm of crystals. He covers his head, pushes forward, and midair morphs his shadow sword into a giant hammer. With one heavy swing, he brings it down on the scorpion's head, and the cave echoes as the beast finally collapses. Breathing hard, Makoto sighs in relief as Renoa admits she had been stubborn for not giving a direct hint. He laughs, saying they are both the same, and she appears beside him, explaining that the shadow weapon can take more forms than just swords. He feels relieved that he realized it due to Renoa's hint and jokes that she could have said that earlier, but she reminds him that learning on his own is part of his growth. He agrees with her because, after all, it was a nice experience. She further adds that unexpected things accelerate growth too, and says that it would be nice if it happens often. Makoto says that he hopes that doesn't happen that way as they leave the dungeon. The next day at Tokyo's Hunter Association, an assistant bows over and over, apologizing for the mix-up about the dungeon's rank. Makoto tells her it is fine since he actually learned a lot. She thanks him and asks him to confirm his payment. When he checks, he freezes, seeing 1,500,000 yen. She explains that solo clearing a D-rank dungeon earns that much, telling him she hopes to work with him again, and she even calls him Mr. Hunter, which makes him smile with pride. Leaving the building, he tells Renoa that they should finally buy flowers for their apartment. She agrees, and he smiles, thinking he can easily afford the best bouquet now. Just then, a familiar presence passes by, and he stops. A woman calls his name, and he turns to see Ryuka Kazane, his childhood friend, smiling brightly as she greets him and asks how he has been. Makoto tells her that he finally formed a pact with a divine spirit and has been working hard. Ryuka's eyes widen as she congratulates him warmly, saying she always knew he could do it around them. People start whispering, shocked that the rising star Ryuka Kazane is talking to what they call a wannabe hunter. Makoto scratches his neck awkwardly as Renoa gets curious, explaining that Ryuka is his old friend and a top-ranked hunter, known for her insane potential. From what he remembers, though, she has a deep hatred for demons, stronger than any other hunter he has met, which makes him wonder how their next meeting will really go. Kazane has always been Makoto's childhood friend, growing up together, sharing every adventure, and somehow managing to keep that same bond even as they got older. It all changed on the day that demons went wild across the earth, tearing through cities like it was their personal playground. During the chaos, a group of demons chased Kazane and her older brother, her brother, realizing how bad it was after a demon scratched him, turned around to hold them off, yelling at her to keep running. Kazane hesitated, wanting to stay, but he insisted, telling her that she had to survive no matter what. Before they could finish, the monster attacked again, slashing at her brother, and he barely blocked it. Its power was terrifying, way beyond what any human could handle, and Kazane could only watch in frozen horror as her brother was crushed before her eyes. That memory never left her. Up until 2 years ago, and around the same time, both Makoto and Kazan received their sacred stones. Makoto had apologized to her at that time, saying that his divine spirit still hadn't appeared. Even though they had promised to fight together, it looked like he wouldn't be able to keep that promise. Kazane, keeping her expression calm, said she understood, but she couldn't wait around. She turned away and joined the Hunter Association, moving forward without him. Presently, the two of them sit in a bright little cafe, a place that feels completely opposite from the bloody chaos they've both seen. Kazane beams as she tells him that the parfait is top tier here and even compliments him for solo clearing a D-rank dungeon right after forming his pact. He laughs and reminds her that he's still F rank, but she waves it off, saying it's still impressive and that he's finally living up to his name. Soon enough, her attention is caught, and curiosity lights up in her eyes as she asks about his divine spirit. Makoto freezes, at a loss for what to say. Renoa, his spirit, whispers that she could appear, to which he mutters that it might cause problems. Thinking fast, he informs Kazane that his divine spirit is just a bit shy, and so it's awkward to introduce her to people. Kazane looks perplexed and asks if divine spirits can even be shy. Renoa grumbles under her breath that she's not shy at all, and Makoto tells her to chill. It's a complicated situation. Then Kazane raises her hand, displaying her sacred stone, and says she'll go first in introducing her spirit. And with a soft glow of light, there appears her upper-rank divine spirit, Wave the wind spirit, who bows politely. Wave greets Makoto with politeness, catching him off guard in surprise at how calm and graceful such a spirit is. Kazane then asks if he's planning to take a rank reassessment soon, but Makoto says the next date is still a while away. She encourages him to keep training and suggests they challenge a C-rank dungeon together. He looks surprised, saying that the difference in their strength is still too big and he'd just hold her back. He's also worried that Renoa's identity might get revealed, but Kazane only smiles and reminds him that he used to lead her when they were young, and now it's her turn to lead. Her warm smile pushes away his hesitation. He finally agrees, remembering the promise they once made. Deep inside, he's worried about the risks, but waves it aside as it is an opportunity to grow, which he can't miss. Kazane lights up, feeling happy that they can finally go together and fight. Meanwhile, in the Tokyo Hunter Association building, a large meeting room is packed with high-ranking officials all talking about one big problem. The Magin one-man reports these beings are of human-level intelligence, with power at least A rank, but up until recently, they had stayed hidden. Lately, though, several hunters have fallen to them. He says the strength of the Magin is unreal, like the battle seems like a bad dream. Kamuro, Japan Hunter Association president, listens and then laughs, saying if he were in his prime, he would have hunted them himself, though age clearly has slowed him down. Mishima, section chief of gate management, immediately scolds him, telling him this isn't a time for jokes. She says that according to her system, all the gates have been properly cleared, but survivors keep claiming the Magin show up. After the clear, one person adds that the survivors said they only came after the dungeon was cleared, and another person asks what purpose they could possibly serve if they show up after the battles are already over. Just then, Amagi walks in, asking if the meeting has started. Mishima isn't having it and scolds him, but Amagi laughs it off, saying her angry face is too beautiful to be making an angry face, which earns him a scoff. After hearing the report, he says that he understands and may have a clue about the situation. Mishima warns him not to make up stories again, to which Amagi confidently tells her to leave it to him, claiming he's got time to spare. Kamuro nods, believing in his instincts, and gives him the go-ahead. As Amagi leaves the room, he is thinking about Makoto and how his prediction about the boy might actually be right after all. Later, at an abandoned building, Kazane and Makoto stand before a glowing C-rank dungeon gate. Kazane asks if he's nervous, and Makoto admits that he kind of is, knowing the demons inside are stronger. He's also tense about Renoa being there, worried about how Kazane might react if she finds out. Kazane notices his unease and gives him a light tap on the chest, telling him not to worry because she's got his back. Makoto smiles and thanks her, but adds that he plans to prove he's not just there to be protected. They both step into the gate together, the air inside thick and heavy with demonic energy. 2 C-rank demons stand ahead, growling. Makoto activates his shadow weapon, planning to gauge the situation, but before he can move, a fierce gust of wind rushes past him. Kazane is already charging forward, her spear glowing as it pierces straight through a demon's head, blasting it apart in a clean hit. Makoto remains stunned for a moment as Kazane's expression hardens and she declares that all demons must be wiped out. The rage that burns behind her words is stronger than before, almost intimidating. Turning back toward him, Kazane says she senses another demonic presence. Her eyes narrow as she looks straight at him, asking where it's coming from. A flash of panic courses through Makoto's mind as he realizes that she might have noticed Renoa's energy right from the start. Makoto quickly deactivates his shadow weapon, and as the dark energy fades away, Kazane scans the area with sharp eyes, saying she thought one of the demons might have escaped. Still, she reminds him that the demonic presence she felt earlier was real, and that he needs to stay alert. He nods in agreement while silently realizing that Kazane probably has a higher sensitivity to magical energy emitted by demons, and may have picked up traces of his shadow magic. Renoa confirms it in a quiet tone, adding that Kazane's hatred for demons is no joke. Makoto admits that he wants to explain everything to her, but after seeing her reaction earlier, he decides it's better to wait. His chest feels heavy with guilt as he follows her deeper into the dungeon. They soon reach the middle area, where a swarm of demons bursts out from the darkness like it's a discount horror movie. Kazane wastes no time, activating her wind spirit's mantle as she kicks the first demon flat and slices it clean in half, mid-air. Hovering with the wind swirling around her, she jabs another one through the chest and then spins her spear in a full arc, cutting through a bunch more before they can blink. Makoto stares in awe, thinking she could even fly with her ability. He jumps in, deciding to handle the ground demons himself, and shouts to her that she can focus on the ones in the air. Blocking a claw with his elbow, he slashes through one demon's chest and fires a blast of shadow energy straight through another. He feels that, of course, the monsters here are definitely stronger than the other ones he fought before, but he goes on with the knowledge that he has also leveled up a bit. He shifts his weapon's form from a sword into a gun, and starts firing at the demons around him, blasting holes in their bodies so big their parts seem to be missing. Kazane glances down mid-battle and almost loses focus for a second when she sees the weapon shift shape. She says that she has never seen that kind of ability before, while she watches him change back into a sword and continue fighting. Within minutes, the swarm is gone, and the middle area falls silent again. Kazane lands smoothly, her spear resting against her shoulder as she smiles and tells him that he's more than holding his own against C-rank demons. He thanks her, trying not to sound too proud, as she tilts her head and says that the strange demonic energy she sensed from him earlier seems to have vanished, so maybe it was nothing. He laughs awkwardly, pretending to agree while feeling a wave of relief that she hasn't figured out Renoa's secret yet. A voice in his mind asks if he would keep this forever, and that puts him into deep thought. He knows that, firstly, Renoa isn't an ordinary demon, a reliable partner at that, and if he explains things, she might understand. But then again, her hatred for demons is fatal, and this confuses him as he clenches his fists, asking himself for advice. They move on until they reach the deepest part of the dungeon. Kazane points at the massive stone doors ahead and says that this must be the boss's lair. Asking if he's ready to focus, Makoto stammers that he is, though his heart's racing like crazy. She smirks, guessing that he's nervous because it's a C-rank boss, a step above what they've faced before. He admits she's right, but before he can say anything else, she cuts him off with a confident smile, telling him that it's fine because he's not alone. She raises her fist in front of him, saying that together they can take anything down. He resolves to talk to her after the defeat of the boss and chuckles, bumping up her fist and thanking her as the two push open the doors and walk inside side by side. The air shifts immediately as the massive Cyclops boss steps forward with its single glowing eye glaring down at them. Makoto acknowledges its overwhelming presence, and almost immediately Kazane activates her wind mantle again, shouting that no matter which demon, she will kill them all, and darts forward to strike it. The Cyclops lifts its huge wooden hammer, but Makoto is faster, wrapping it with shadow chains that hold it just long enough for Kazane to land a clean strike at its guts. The Cyclops roars, breaking free, and swings wildly, forcing both of them to dive away. They regroup for a second, then rush in again, perfectly syncing their movements, slashing from opposite sides and landing clean hits that make the ground shake. Their teamwork feels almost natural, like they're reading each other's thoughts. Kazane spins around to target its legs, while Makoto slashes with a scythe, aiming for its knees, while Kazane does the same to the other leg. The Cyclops stumbles with another furious roar. Makoto calls out that it's weakened now and binds it, telling Kazane to finish it. She nods, thanking him, and unleashes her divine power, summoning her skill Wind Shower. The attack explodes like a mini tornado, blasting the Cyclops backward with a loud crash. When the dust settles, the monster's body fades into dark mist, leaving only silence. Kazane lands softly next to him, grinning and saying that they were oddly in sync, adding that their teamwork was on point, as it is with him. Makoto agrees, but silently says that it's not enough. Wave appears beside them with a proud smile, praising both of them for their perfect coordination. Kazan laughs and says that years of friendship are paying off and that together they're unstoppable. Makoto's smile fades slightly as he steps closer, saying there's something he needs to tell her before they go any further. His voice shakes a little as he removes his glove and reaches for his sacred stone, ready to reveal the truth about Rinoa. But before he can finish, a loud crack echoes through the chamber. Both of them snap their heads toward the sound as a dark gate forms in midair, sending sparks across the ground. A single foot steps out, then a hand covered in sharp claws. The figure of a demon man emerges with a grin stretching across his face as he looks directly at Makoto, saying that he's finally found him. The air grows heavy once more, and Makoto's heart sinks, knowing this fight is only just beginning. The demon steps forward, his grin so wide it appears his face might split, the air thick around him with energy so dark it feels alive. Makoto can barely breathe as his knees shake, knowing deep down this one isn't like the others. This one's built different, like a humanoid. Kazane notices it too and pushes him back, her eyes sharp as she asks if he is one of the Magin. The demon laughs, a sound that makes the air vibrate, and says the name's Grom. Kazane mutters that the rumors were true, then tells Makoto that if they try fighting head-on, they'll be cooked in seconds. She says that she'll buy him time, and he should run. Makoto tries arguing, but the tone she uses stops him cold, the same one she used when her brother made his final stand. She says it's enough if he survives, and before he can stop her, she's gone. The wind bursts around her as she charges, her spear slicing through the air faster than lightning. Each strike carries the roar of her spirit, but Grom moves like he's out for a stroll, dodging with lazy grace and smirking as he says, she's moving in slow motion. The mockery lights a fire in her eyes, and she pushes harder, her energy ablaze brighter than ever. But Grom just dances through it all. It's like watching a storm try to hit the wind itself. When he finally catches her spear mid-thrust and pulls her close, he says that he's got her now, his voice dripping with amusement. She barely escapes as his claws slice through the space where her neck was a second ago, the air hissing from the force. Kazane leans out to her divine spirit, Wave, who in a flash of green light appears right away. She yells out for their strongest move, and Wave responds, their power merging into one raging storm that tears through the chamber. The winds howl like an angry god as Makoto barely manages to shield himself, his shadow weapon buckling under the pressure. Once the dust settles, Grom is standing in the middle of it all, without a scratch. He chuckles, stating that for him, her strongest attack feels like a soft breeze on a summer day. Kazane's jaw clenches, her eyes burning with fury as she holds onto her spear so hard that her knuckles pale. Smiling at her reaction, Grom says her hatred of demons is magnificent, but asks if she even knows why she hates them so much. Confused and angry, she demands to know what he means. Grom points at Makoto with a wicked grin and says that he's the one she should be questioning. He says that Makoto made a pact with a demon. Time stops. Kazane stares at him, then shakes her head and shouts that it's a lie. Grom just keeps smiling. Her voice cracks as she says Makoto would never betray humanity like that, but her words start to tremble when Makoto stays silent. She turns to him, demanding that he deny it. Makoto's heart pounds as he realizes that he can't keep hiding it. He removes his gloves, revealing his sacred stone, and calls out Rinoa's name. Light bursts through the room, and Rinoa appears beside him, her presence soft but unmistakably demonic. Kazane retreats a step backward, her eyes wide as the truth strikes her like a blade. Makoto attempts to explain how Rinoa is different, but Kazane's anger explodes. She raises her spear up, shouting at him that his pact goes against everything they have fought for. Makoto begs her to listen, but she doesn't hear him anymore. Her voice shakes with rage as she speaks of betrayal from their cause, then spins and hurls her spear straight at Grom, saying she will start by taking him down first. Grom catches the weapon mid-air like it's nothing and grabs her by the neck before she can react. She hangs in the air, gasping for breath. He raises his clawed hand to finish her, but a shadow chain lashes out, wrapping around his arm. Makoto yells for him to stop. Grom looks at the chain, laughs, and rips it apart with one pull. He says at least Makoto's finally joining in, then tosses Kazane aside like a broken doll. She crashes hard, the sound echoing through the chamber, and Makoto dives forward, catching her before she hits the wall. He lays her down gently, whispering that he'll make it right. Grom turns to Rinoa, his eyes sharp with recognition. He names her a fallen angel in a voice half mocking, half interested. Rinoa's voice turns ice hard as she says she never wanted to hear him again. Makoto looks at them, puzzled, and asks if they know each other. Rinoa explains that when she first fell from grace, the Magin tried to claim her, but she got away. Makoto's jaw clenches at how close she came to becoming one of them. Grom shrugs and says she may have gotten away, but to the Magin, she is just another number in their eternal army. Rinoa shoots him a glare and tells him she will never be one of them. Demons will always be her enemies. Grom bursts out laughing and asks if she does not want payback on those divine spirits who abandoned her. These words cut deep, and she flinches. He says if she joins them, she can destroy whomever she wants. Divine spirits, humans, or demons. Anyone. That this is what freedom really is. It is the response of Rinoa. Her voice shakes as old pain surfaces, but no sound comes out. Her hands shake, and tears gather in her eyes. Makoto moves in front of her, his shadow blade forming in his hand, as his glare locks onto Grom. He growls that she's nothing like them. Grom raises an eyebrow as Makoto asks what makes her so different. Makoto says that if being a demon means hurting others for fun, then Rinoa's the opposite since she's brave, kind, and always the first to risk herself for others. He calls her his partner, someone who's fought by his side through everything. Rinoa stares at him, her hands shaking while a faint glow returns to her eyes. Grom's grin twists into disgust as he says it is pathetic and emotions make humans weak. He continues by saying that he will crush that weakness along with their bond. He raises his claws and proclaims that he'll end both of them right there. Makoto tightens his grip on the blade, shadows swirling around him, saying he won't back down, and if being a fool is protecting Rinoa, then he'll proudly be that fool. Rinoa steps beside him, wings spread as resolve again burns bright within her. Together they face Grom, two figures standing against a force that could erase them in an instant. Grom grins wider, saying this might actually be fun, and as Makoto charges forward with shadows twisting around his blade, Rinoa beside him with her light flaring, the trembling dungeon answers to the beginning of their clash. Grom stretches his body like he just woke up from a nap, a smug grin plastered on his face as Rinoa warns Makoto that defeating him is impossible, though she points out that Grom's overconfidence might actually be their ticket out. She tells Makoto that escape is their only realistic option, and before she can even finish, Grom dashes forward with insane speed, his movement so fast it almost blurs. Makoto barely raises his sword in time before Grom vanishes from sight and reappears behind him, landing a heavy kick that sends him crashing into the wall. Makoto coughs in pain while Grom strolls toward him like he is on a casual walk, enjoying every second of it. Makoto quickly summons his shadow bind, wrapping Grom's arm and foot in chains before shifting his weapon into a gun to shoot shadow bullets, but Grom just breaks free like it is nothing, catching the bullets mid-air and dropping them to the floor with a teasing smirk. He says that it would have been more fun if he had thrown them back at him, taunting that he must be out of tricks, and that comment alone makes Makoto's blood boil as he realizes that he is being completely toyed with. As the fight drags on, Kazane slowly comes to her senses, her vision blurry at first until she spots Makoto, bruised and bleeding, still fighting that monster head-on. Immediately, she goes into a panic as she attempts to sit up, noticing that Rinoa is behind Makoto, helping him. She becomes instantly heartbroken at how badly he is hurt. But what really stops the breath in her throat is seeing that he has made a pact with a demon. Fingers clutch his coat tight, confusion flooding her mind as she wonders how it all came to this. Grom suddenly delivers another ruthless kick, this time to Makoto's side, then another straight to his stomach, yelling that he is weak and that all his efforts are meaningless. Makoto groans in agony but somehow forces himself back up, shaking and breathing heavily yet refusing to stay down. He admits that he is weak, that he cannot match Grom's power, but still, he refuses to quit, his voice trembling yet steady. Kazane freezes at his words, her heart clenches as a memory surfaces. It is about a week after her brother's death when Makoto had quietly entered her room, telling her that her mother was worried because she had not eaten in days. Back then, she told him that nothing mattered anymore, that it felt pointless to continue. Makoto had walked up to her and patted her back gently, telling her not to give up because if she did, then she would truly lose everything. He had confessed that he once felt the same despair when his parents were gone, but he learned that those who survived still had a path ahead, and the only way to find it was to keep moving forward. That memory makes tears well up in her eyes because it was Makoto's words that gave her strength back then. Snapping back to the present, Kazane sees him struggling again, trying to block Grom's next strike only to be overwhelmed and thrown aside once more. Grom taunts him, saying spirit alone will not save him, but despite his trembling body and bruised hands, Makoto rises again, glaring up at Grom with the same stubborn fire. Kazane grips her coat tighter, realizing this is exactly who he has always been, someone who is straight with others and strong-willed no matter how hard he falls. Even if he made a pact with some kind of demon, his heart is still the same. Finally, she screams for him not to give up, her voice cutting through the chaos. Makoto glances back at her, and her small, confident smile reminds him that she still believes in him. Encouraged, he smiles back, just as Grom charges again, warning him not to get distracted. Makoto meets the strike head-on, blocking it with his sword and catching Grom off guard by his sudden strength. The two lock eyes as sparks fly, and Makoto's thoughts drift for a brief second to Kazane's pain, her faith in everything she has endured. That faith gives him new fire, and he pushes back hard, quicker than before. He leaps into the air to avoid Grom's next strike, swinging his sword in one clean motion, as he promises himself internally that he cannot fall here. The air whistles with his strike as Grom merely turns his head to dodge. The edge of the blade manages to graze against his face, though he tries to avoid the blow. A thin line of blood streaks across his cheek, hitting the earth, and silence momentarily falls. Makoto lands and steps back, his breathing hoarse but steady, while Grom slowly licks the blood off his face with a twisted smile. Far from anger, he seems entertained, stating that the fight has gone on for long enough. The air shifts as he begins to gather dark energy around him, a swirling storm of black magic that makes the earth shudder. He calls it a parting gift for their afterlife, and even Rinoa and Kazane can feel the crushing weight of it upon their bodies. Makoto quivers slightly, his mind trying to understand how one being can hold so much power. Then Grom turns his gaze toward Rinoa and tells her to return to his side if she wants her friends to live. He promises that her obedience might save them, but heavily implies that Makoto's time is over. Rinoa looks at Makoto, standing firm despite his pain and giving her a calm nod to keep strong. She turns back to face Grom and firmly denies that she will ever yield to a demon. The smile on Grom's face disappears, and he declares their end as he launches his attack, a huge surge of dark power called Doom of the Underworld. The energy charges towards them like a tidal wave, and for a moment, despair sets in. Everything goes silent except for the roaring darkness, and even Makoto feels his will flicker. Then, out of nowhere, a bright yellow light bursts open between them, forming a huge hole that swallows Grom's attack whole, leaving absolutely nothing behind. In the same swift motion the light appeared, it is gone, and the battlefield is back to silence. Everyone is frozen, including Grom, his eyes wide in disbelief, as Makoto demands to know what just happened. Before he can react, a hand calmly but firmly touches his shoulder. A voice tells Grom that his actions will not be allowed to destroy the hope of a brighter future. Makoto whips around to find a man standing behind him, tall and confident, with an aura that speaks volumes of his authority. The stranger returns his glare and introduces himself to him as Amagi, saying if Grom still wishes to play with him too. Yugo assures Makoto that he did well and should leave the rest to him as he steps forward with calm confidence. The air instantly grows heavy, and Makoto feels the overwhelming pressure of an S-rank hunter, realizing how terrifying Yugo's power really is. Grom acknowledges Yugo's strength, but his tone drips with arrogance, while Yugo casually throws his drink into the portal like he's tossing away a bad drink, saying that he, Yugo, is actually stronger than him, Grom, clearly provoking him. The calm flex works as Grom's anger flares, and Yugo smiles, saying that he needs to repay him for injuring his junior hunter while unveiling his special class divine spirit, Nova, and suddenly the tension hits anime finale levels. Grom crouches with a grin, asking if Yugo's confidence is all talk before lunging forward with a punch that could probably flatten a tank, but Yugo catches it easily, not even blinking. With a smirk, he tells Grom not to touch his face since it's part of his business brand, then casually tosses him aside like a bag of trash. Before Grom can even hit the ground, a spatial rift opens up behind him, pulling him in and spitting him right back out in front of Yugo, who welcomes him with a grin and a punch to the stomach that sends him flying into the wall. The hit cracks the ground so hard that even the dungeon seems to shudder. Rinoa explains to Makoto that divine power works especially well against demons, but she admits that Yugo's divine power is way beyond normal, like a cheat code that somehow got approved by the developers. Grom, furious now, summons dark energy and launches it at Yugo, who doesn't even move, instead releasing his Sky Piercer, which consumes and neutralizes the attack before it can explode. The energy gets trapped and compressed until it detonates inside the weapon, shattering one of Grom's arms in the process. Makoto watches in shock, realizing that Yugo isn't just strong, he's unfairly strong, the kind of character fans debate about for years. Yugo laughs, saying that Grom barely escaped serious damage and should start using his full strength, which only makes him angrier. Before the battle can continue, another demon appears, stopping Grom's next attack. Everyone looks stunned as Grom recognizes him as Fine and demands to know why he is there. Fine warns Grom that using his power in that state will get him destroyed, then turns to Yugo, saying that if they fought, neither would win easily. Yugo agrees, saying that Fine looks formidable as Fine declares the fight a draw and tells Grom to retreat. Grom protests, refusing to back down, but Fine's glare silences him, forcing him to obey. Before leaving through the gate, Grom threatens the group, saying that he will return and make them regret everything, then disappears, leaving an eerie silence behind. Everyone just stands there trying to process what happened until Yugo breaks the silence, asking if the demons are really gone. Makoto steps forward, bowing and thanking him for the help, and Yugo waves it off, saying that they can talk while heading back. Later, during their walk, Makoto nervously asks if Yugo had always suspected that he had a link to a demon. Yugo takes a sip of his drink and says that he did, explaining that it was why Grom had been following him in the first place. Yugo then turns to Makoto and Kazumi, asking if they finally made peace, which instantly makes both of them freeze. Kazumi says that Makoto hasn't changed, but glances at Rinoa and adds that trusting her is another matter. Rinoa shrugs, saying that Kazumi can believe whatever she wants. The air turns tense and Makoto panics, trying to calm them both down. Yugo watches quietly before saying that Rinoa, being a former spirit with traits close to a demon, might play an important role in what's to come, then assures Makoto that he accepts both him and Rinoa as human. The words make Makoto feel relieved and grateful for Yugo's understanding. Fueled by determination, Makoto runs ahead, saying that he will get stronger, stronger than he is now, and his boldness catches everyone off guard. Yugo smiles, rushing past him with lightning speed, and says that he looks forward to fighting beside him one day. Later, on a skyscraper rooftop, a plane lands to pick up Yugo after his report. He tells Kamuro that the demon threat will stay quiet for now. Kamuro thanks him, saying that trusting him was the right choice before bringing up Himuro Yusei, a former A-rank hunter who had gone rogue. Yugo remembers him instantly as the one who caused chaos after being dismissed. Kamuro explains that he was in custody, but vanished without a trace. Yugo sighs, saying that the situation is messy, but he cannot handle it now since he has other matters. He promises to recommend 2 strong hunters and send their data later. Kamuro agrees, saying that he will review it soon. After ending the call, Kamuro turns to a man sitting nearby, apologizing for the delay and telling him to speak. The man introduces himself as Uesugi Ogi, a former disciple of Himuro Yusei, and a current A-rank hunter, saying that he plans to stop Yusei once and for all. The air turns serious again, marking the start of a new arc that promises even bigger chaos and stronger opponents. Like the story just unlocked its next boss fight. Years ago, Uesugi Uji trained under his master, Himuro Yusei, a man known for being both a genius and a headache. During their talk, Uji says that he wants to be the best hunter out there, and that he will take his duties seriously, but Yusei waves it off, calling him too stiff and saying he does not want a boring disciple. With a playful jab to Uji's back, Yusei tells him to chill out and enjoy being a hunter, reminding him that not everyone gets the chance. Uji keeps insisting that a hunter's responsibility should come first, but Yusei cuts him off, saying that if Uji wants to stay his student, he needs to loosen up and stop chasing perfection. Instead, he should follow a path of his own, and not become a puppet of the association, which Yusei calls useless. OG finally nods but admits that he could never be like Yusei, which makes the man grin and ask if Uji is mocking him while laughing like he just won an argument in an anime flashback. In the present, Makoto and Kazine jog around a pond while a random man on a bench watches them and wonders if they are training for the next big tournament. Kazine brings up the flower shop Makoto visited after their dungeon expedition, and Makoto says that it was because Rinoa likes pretty things, adding that her presence makes the room feel brighter. A man nearby wonders how many laps they have done, which honestly makes sense because they have been running forever. Kazine asks what else Rinoa likes besides flowers, and Makoto hesitates, saying that she should ask Rinoa directly. Rinoa, overhearing, flatly says that she has no particular likes, and Kazine tells her to be more friendly since they are on the same team. Rinoa reminds her that it was Kazine who said she does not trust her, brushing off the comment. Frustrated, Kazine raises her voice, saying that she dislikes Rinoa's attitude, while Makoto tries to calm them down, but both tell him to stay out of it, leaving him standing there like a forgotten side character. As they continue running, they overhear a couple talking about a criminal hunter who had escaped from prison. The woman sounds worried, while her boyfriend says they should just go home. Makoto turns to Kazine and asks if she knows anything about it, and she says that the escapee is Himuro Yusei, a former A-rank hunter who was incredibly skilled. She wonders what could have made someone like that turn into a criminal. Makoto's phone suddenly buzzes with a message, and Kazine's does too. They check and see an emergency summons from the Hunter Association. Kazine says that it looks like both of them have been called, and Makoto guesses that it is probably because of Yugo's recommendation. Kazine simply says that they should head over and find out what is going on. Soon after, they arrive at the Tokyo Hunter Association building and are directed to conference room number 5. A man enters, greeting them and introducing himself as Hayashi from the Abnormal Measures Division. He thanks them for coming and says that based on Yugo's recommendation, the two of them are being trusted with the search for Himuro Yusei. Both are shocked, clearly not expecting this kind of mission. Hayashi explains that while the police are investigating, the association also needs to take action. He says that Yusei might be hiding near the gate where he escaped, and their job is to investigate that area. When Makoto raises a concern about how dangerous it sounds, Hayashi reassures him, saying that they are not going alone since an A-rank hunter will be joining them. Moments later, the door opens, and Kazine freezes when she sees Uesugi Uji walk in. Uji greets her, saying that it has been a while since they last met. Hayashi confirms that their team is now complete and excuses himself, telling them to review the documents before leaving. Kazine smiles, saying that it really has been a long time since they cleared a gate together, and Uji nods. Makoto looks at him in awe, remembering that Uji is the only prodigy of their generation to achieve A rank. He introduces himself, saying that it is an honor to work with him, but Uji does not shake his hand. Instead, he simply says that he was the former disciple of Himuro Yusei, and that he has no plan to team up with them. Both Makoto and Kazine are stunned as Uji picks up a tablet and says that finding Yusei is his personal duty, calling them a distraction. Kazine argues that teamwork is essential, but Uji says that he does not need anyone's help and walks out. Makoto tries to stop him, saying that it would be smarter to split tasks, suggesting that he and Kazine could handle the demons in the gate, while Uji focuses on locating Yusei. Uji pauses, giving him a cold stare, but Makoto keeps going, saying that they are hunters and cannot ignore the mission. Kazine agrees, saying that they will do their best to contribute. Uji sighs and says that they can do whatever they want, making it clear that he will move alone. He walks out, ignoring Makoto's call to coordinate. Makoto turns to Kazine, worried, but she tells him to follow Uji for now, since they will figure things out later, like every other anime team that starts in chaos. That night, an abandoned school stands silent, its barriers shattered. 3 middle school boys sneak inside, talking about claiming the place as their territory. The first boy says that they can divide the floors, while the one in the cap says that the school is way too big to control. As they walk, one of them shines a flashlight into a classroom and spots sharp ice spikes blocking the area. They wonder if it is a dungeon gate and why it is frozen. Panic hits when one boy goes silent, and the others look back to see him frozen solid. Before they can react, the ice spreads, trapping them too. A shadowy figure steps out from behind the ice and snaps it apart, the frozen boys shattering with it. The man mutters about how troublesome it is to have to leave corpses behind before turning to the gate and sealing it shut with his ice power. With cold eyes, he says that he will take revenge on the association, convinced that his actions are justified, revealing himself to be Himuro Yusei, the former A-rank hunter. Earlier, in a dense forest, Uesugi, Makoto, and Kazin stand before the gate of a C-rank dungeon, the air tense but calm. Uesugi reminds them again that he will handle things his own way, as always, because of course he would. Before they can move, Makoto calls out, asking Uesugi to wait, saying he has something to share. Makoto knows that if they are going to work together, he must tell them about Rinoa's situation, but before he can even open his mouth, Uesugi interrupts like he read Makoto's mind, asking if it's about his contract with the demon. He says Yugo already told him, leaving Makoto frozen like a laggy game screen. When Makoto asks if Uesugi isn't going to condemn him for it, Uesugi replies that having a demon contract isn't evil unless it's used for wrongdoing. Makoto just stares, stunned, as Kazin pats his shoulder saying Uesugi isn't that bad after all. With that, Kazin follows Uesugi into the dungeon, leaving Makoto behind to think about whether someone could really believe in something like that. Moments later, the trio clear the C-rank dungeon, pushing into the boss room. There, they face a huge white spider that looks straight out of nightmares. Makoto already knows it won't be easy, but before the spider can even blink, Uesugi releases his divine power and freezes it completely, then shatters it into pieces like it's nothing. Makoto and Kazin just stand there in disbelief, while Uesugi sighs, asking how much longer they plan to waste time on weaklings. Then they see Uesugi's divine spirit, Yuki, standing gracefully at the dungeon entrance. Makoto thanks Uesugi for saving them and asks about the search, but Uesugi says it's complete with 0 results, so there's no reason to stay. Makoto glances back at the shattered spider, realizing he's just witnessed what an A-rank hunter can really do. As Uesugi turns to leave, Kazin shouts, accusing him of always being self-centered, the drama building up fast. Makoto doesn't move right away, so Kazin looks back, but before anything else, Rinoa speaks in Makoto's mind, saying a new ability has awakened during the fight. Makoto's excitement jumps like a gamer pulling an SSR drop, and he quickly asks what it is. Rinoa explains that it's called Residual Shadow Sense, a skill that tracks shadows to locate targets. Uesugi looks shocked for once, as Rinoa adds that if the traces are from the past 24 hours, the skill can follow the target's exact movements. Makoto lights up instantly, saying it's perfect for their mission. He runs toward Uesugi, explaining how the ability could help them find Yusei, asking if Uesugi knows any place that might matter to him. After a pause, Uesugi starts walking, saying there's a hill near the dungeon gate where he and Yusei used to talk. Without looking back, Uesugi keeps walking, basically giving them the silent follow me. Kazin groans that Uesugi's attitude might actually mean that, making Rinoa mumble about how cold Uesugi always acts. A short while later, they reach the hill, and Uesugi stops, staring down quietly. He remembers the past, the time when Yusei told him why the hill mattered, saying that standing there overlooking the city made him feel free. Like no rules could chain him, Yusei had even given Uesugi a playful push that day, saying he should live freely and chase excitement instead of sticking to rules. Uesugi pushes those memories away, knowing it's not time to dwell. Makoto notices Uesugi's distant look and walks up, but Uesugi waves it off and tells him to activate his new ability. Makoto nods and does it, and dark shadows spread around him, revealing footsteps leading toward the hill's edge. Makoto studies the pattern, saying someone was there recently, but he can't yet tell who. Uesugi kneels down to inspect it, his expression changing as he confirms it's Yusei. He looks at the trace quietly, wondering why Yusei came back and what he was thinking. Memories hit him again, but he forces them aside. Makoto snaps him back to focus, saying he's tracked Yusei's current location. Uesugi nods, saying they move now. As they head back, Uesugi silently thinks that Yusei must have come to this hill to clear his doubts. Meanwhile, at the Guild Association headquarters, Miss Mishima from Gate Management sits at her desk staring at her screen, panic growing as she realizes something is off. She orders her team to open a communication line immediately, then gives a chilling announcement, warning all hunters of a possible gate break and ordering instant search operations. While running through the forest, the group suddenly receives a notification that makes them stop in their tracks. It's an emergency announcement from the association, reporting the appearance of a gate at unknown coordinates and ordering all hunters to move out immediately. Makoto quickly recalls that gates usually take 7 days before breaking, but Kazin, ever the realist, says that this one feels off and could break at any time. She urges them to find it fast before things get messy. Makoto reminds them of Yusei's traces, saying that following them might lead to the gate. Uji's expression shifts like he just pieced something together, remembering how Yusei always faced hesitation by acting first. Gripping his arm tightly, Uji declares that Yusei's goal must be to trigger a gate break. He tells Makoto to lead them fast, shocking him, but Makoto quickly takes the lead as his shadow ability guides them deeper into the forest. The trail leads them to an old abandoned school, straight out of a horror movie. As they approach, Makoto spots a shadowy figure near the entrance and alerts the others. The figure moves inside, and Uji instantly concludes that it's Yusei. Before they can move, a loud crack echoes from the building, followed by a dark surge of energy that spreads like wildfire. Makoto's chest tightens as painful memories flash before him, the same dark power that took his parents. Keizin's face turns pale too, haunted by the memory of her brother's death. Both brace for what's coming as the windows explode, and a massive wave of demons bursts out like an angry swarm. Makoto shouts for everyone to hold their ground and stop the invasion, while Keizin unleashes her wind power to control the chaos. The demons rush them from every direction, their screeches echoing through the forest. When they aim for Uji, he finally moves, releasing a surge of icy divine energy that freezes half the swarm in one hit. Without hesitation, Uji leaps straight into the school like a solo main character, leaving Makoto and Keizin to handle the rest. Makoto curses under his breath at Uji's habit of doing things alone, but keeps swinging his blade while Keizin fights above with wind strikes that slice through the air. The battle gets tougher with every passing second, but just as exhaustion starts to hit, a wave of flames erupts nearby, followed by bursts of different divine powers. Reinforcements arrive like the cavalry in a shonen finale, slashing through the demons in synchronized chaos. One of the hunters shouts that Makoto and Keizin did well holding the line, saying that they'll take it from there. Makoto looks around, amazed by their numbers, but he doesn't stop. He tightens his grip on his sword, determined to keep proving his worth. Then, of course, someone just has to call him a wannabe hunter because of his low mana output. The insult stings, but there's no time to argue. Suddenly, a tornado of wind blows away the demons in front of him, and Keizin shouts from above that she'll take care of things outside, telling him to catch up with Uji relieved. Makoto thanks her, and then dashes toward the school. Inside, the building feels like a nightmare maze, demons jumping out at every corner. Makoto slices through them as he pushes deeper, determined to reach the gate. Finally, he bursts into a room and stops dead at the sight of Uji freezing the demon boss mid-attack before smashing it apart like it's made of glass. Makoto just stands there, speechless, wondering if Uji already ended the fight. Uji confirms that Yusei is gone and says that even stopping this gate won't matter, since Yusei will just try again. Makoto refuses to accept that, telling Uji that giving up now isn't an option. Uji snaps, grabs Makoto by the coat, and yells at him for acting like he knows everything. But Makoto stays calm, reminding Uji that his strength brought them this far. Uji looks taken aback as Makoto says that since the boss is down, they can still catch Yusei. Using his residual shadow sense, Makoto locates the new trail, grabs Uji by the arm, and tells him to move before Yusei gets away. Uji stares at Makoto's hand gripping him, his anger melting into a quiet sigh. Pulling away, Uji apologizes and starts walking ahead, saying thanks. Makoto replies that the thanks can wait until it's over, which actually makes Uji smile for once. He agrees and tells them to finish this fast. They reach another building soon after, and Makoto points out that Yusei's shadow is heading straight inside. Uji freezes, asking if this place is the association's gate management system. Makoto's eyes widen as he realizes what that means, and they both rush in. Inside, they find the system already destroyed, crystal shards scattered, and people frozen like statues. Uji runs deeper ahead, ignoring Makoto's warning to wait, but he bursts into the last room where Yusei stands calmly by a huge tube, setting a bomb in place. Sharp ice spikes fly toward him as Uji attacks, but Yusei blocks them easily and says that everything is going exactly as planned, warning Uji to stay out of his way. Just as Makoto nears the entrance, Yusei flicks his fingers and a massive crystal block forms, sealing the doorway shut. Makoto halts instantly, barely avoiding being frozen inside. Yusei turns to Uji with a smirk, saying that this is their long-awaited reunion, and that he wouldn't want anyone ruining the vibe. Behind the ice, Makoto pounds on the wall, shouting for Uji, but Uji stays focused. Yusei asks if Uji really wants to end him, but Uji replies coldly that he can't show mercy. With that, Yusei releases his divine power, the ground frosting over as he summons his high-ranked divine spirit, Flone. He teases Uji, saying he'd be disappointed if Uji doesn't fight at full power, and Uji responds by summoning Yuki, saying that he doesn't need to be told twice. Yusei explains that Uji can only win by defeating him and destroying the device he's holding. Knowing reinforcements won't make it in time, Uji activates his divine energy, ready to face him one-on-one. Uji conjures several ice spikes in the air and launches them like missiles, but Yusei blocks every single one effortlessly, brushing them off as weak Yuki looks shocked, while Yusei counterattacks with his own barrage of spikes, forcing Uji to dodge midair. Uji lands and summons dual swords, preparing for close combat. Yusei smirks, asking where Uji learned that style, hinting that he already knows. Uji throws one sword straight at him, and Yusei blocks it easily, confused as to why Uji would ditch his dual-wielding advantage. But before Yusei can react, Uji regenerates another sword instantly and swings from the opposite direction, forcing Yusei to tilt backward to avoid the slash Uji presses on, slashing relentlessly while Yusei blocks, their movements blurring like two veterans in perfect sync. Realizing Uji is faster than his ice regeneration, Yusei laughs, shouting praise, but also saying that now he understands Uji's rhythm. Uji retorts that he's not the same person Yusei once trained. For a moment, it looks like Uji has the upper hand, until Yusei's smile fades and he warns him not to get too confident. Yusei releases a heavy surge of energy, the room vibrating as Makoto outside keeps hammering the ice in frustration, calling it impossibly strong. Rinoa tells him to keep going, saying it's proof of Yusei's insane power. Inside, Yusei forms something beside him, and Uji's eyes widen as the ice starts shaping into a human. Within moments, a perfect replica of Yusei stands beside him. He calls it his alter ego skill, and says Uji's dual swords might be strong, but 2 Yuseis will fix that problem since Uji has to fight 2 of them. Uji scoffs, saying no copy could match the real deal, but when he charges in, the clone blocks his strike with perfect timing. Shocking him, Yusei laughs, explaining that the clone mirrors his strength and moves independently, though it can't use skills. Uji regains his focus, sarcastically calling it a fine ice doll, but Yusei mocks him, saying he's all alone while his friends can only watch. Outside, Makoto hears this and panics, realizing Uji might be fighting 2 opponents at once. The bomb beside the tube keeps ticking, seconds slipping away. Uji fights both Yusei and his clone, spinning, slashing, and blocking every blow with insane precision. But the pressure starts showing as the clone mirrors every single move flawlessly. Out of nowhere, the real Yusei blinks beside him and lands a clean hit to Uji's side before kicking him across the room. Uji hits the floor hard but rolls back onto his feet, summoning an ice wall to block the next attack. Yusei watches him with amusement, saying it's rare to see him. This fired up Uji's grip trembles slightly as he wonders if the gap between them is just too wide. Grinding his teeth, he demands to know why Yusei, with all that power, chose to destroy everything. Yusei chuckles, saying that nothing about him has changed, he's just being honest with himself. He explains that hunters chase power but are chained down by the association's endless rules. So he broke free and did things his way. Yusei's tone turns darker as he says that his rebellion got him exiled, but he doesn't regret it. Uji yells that his so-called freedom included taking lives, but Yusei shrugs, saying those hunters were just simply brainwashed pawns following orders. He compares them to stray dogs, and that line freezes Uji completely, disbelief flickering across his face. Outside, Makoto also goes still, hearing every word Yusei continues, saying that with the gate break already happening and the association's system destroyed, the collapse of their world is inevitable. He calls it revenge, saying hunters will finally be free from control. Uji explodes in rage, calling his form of reasoning twisted and swearing to stop him. Forcing his shaking legs to stand, Uji declares that as Yusei's former student, he won't let him destroy everything. Yusei chuckles, mocking his defiance and calling him trapped. Uji looks down and realizes ice has crept up his legs, locking him in place. Yusei raises his blade toward Uji's head, ready to end it. But before the blade falls, a deafening explosion shakes the room as the ice sealing the door shatters into shards. Yusei snaps his head around just as a massive hammer blasts through the opening. Forcing him to leap aside, Makoto storms into the room through the shattered doorway, with his weapon raised and eyes burning with fury. The ground trembles as he points his hammer straight at Yusei, shouting for him to stop this madness once and for all. With razor-sharp precision, Makoto swings his hammer, dispelling the ice that traps Wasugi and releasing him at last. He says that he had already known how to destroy the ice. Wasugi, realizing that Makoto has been hitting the ice just to get to him, Wasugi blinks, realizes how much effort Makoto put into it, and a faint smile crosses his face, relieved and appreciative. Meanwhile, Himura watches this moment in visible disgust as he turns a blind eye, rolling his eyes and taunting Makoto for faking knowing how to break through his ice, calling him trash. Makoto and Wasugi take another step forward to face Himuro head-on. Himuro catches on that Wasugi might be a real problem and should be taken down first. Himuro swings his sword deadly fast, but Wasugi catches it at the very last second and tells him that he will be the only one to take him down. The line catches his nerve, and Himuro's calm grin twists into irritation. Without a moment's hesitation, he orders his alter ego to take care of Makoto, and the shadowy clone surges forward in a frenzied attack as Himuro goes back to dueling it out with Wasugi. Makoto notices right off that the alter ego's movements are sharp and quick, but compared with the monsters he has fought, especially Grom, this thing is a warm-up. He slides backward, clearing space, boots scraping off frozen ground as he analyzes its rhythm. Meanwhile, Wasugi's still dancing with Himuro, both clashing with heavy sparks, as Himuro sneers, wondering if Wasugi's shaking in his boots that his friend was taken down. Wasugi looks to Makoto, but says nothing, and that just annoys Himuro even more. With confidence in his creation, Himuro boasts that he can be assured that Makoto will never defeat his alter ego. But just as he turns to mock him once more, the smirk on his face fades. The alter ego is already gone, split cleanly in half as Makoto stands there with his sword, serene and unruffled. The stunned silence between Wasugi and Himuro says it all. Makoto tilts his head a little, mentioning that besides the demons, what came just now from him barely counted as a warm-up. Himuro pushes Wasugi back and turns his glare toward Makoto, asking coldly if he made a contract with a demon. Makoto shrugs off the question and asks why it even matters. Himuro's smirk returns, more sinister this time, as he warns Makoto that no one will ever accept a hunter bound by a demon contract. He questions if Makoto really thinks he can find happiness living that way, then takes it a step further, suggesting he should join him instead, promising that together they could reshape the world. The words hang heavy for a moment, and even Makoto hesitates, struck by how convincing Himuro sounds. But then he shakes his head, saying that even if Himuro might have a point, he still wants to live as a hunter and experience the world with his own hands. With a pointed jab, he says that Himuro has become no better than the demons he claims to despise. And with a sharp glare, he declares that he'll defeat him, not as some demon's pawn, but as a hunter. Wasugi, fired up by Makoto's words, grins and parrots his determination, saying that personal relationships and friendship don't matter if it's a question of justice. Together, they refer to Himuro as the evil that should be stopped and charge forward with blades shining bright with resolve. Himuro barely blinks, scoffing that they must have a death wish. The ground fissures as he changes stance and shoots forward with terrifying speed, striking them both in one smooth motion. Wasugi receives a deep slash across his body, which his clothes soak with blood, and Makoto catches a hit on the face with a painful cut across his cheek. From the power of the blows, it becomes clear that Himuro had been holding back this whole time. Grinding their teeth, Makoto and Wasugi retreat to attack once more in concert, only to be blocked by Himuro with a single, light swing. He turns his attention to Makoto once again and sends him a heavy strike Makoto blocks, but the shock sends him flying backward, his arms shaking under the pressure. He quickly realizes that Himuro's true movements are far sharper than his alter ego's, every strike deliberate and refined. Desperate to turn things around, Makoto activates his residual shadow sense, watching faint traces of afterimages trail behind Himuro's motions. The skill allows him to predict his opponent's attacks before they land. He thinks about sharing that vision with Wasugi, and Renoa's voice echoes in his mind, suggesting that he can channel mana into another's eyes to temporarily share it. Grateful for the tip, Makoto sends energy into one of Wasugi's eyes, and Wasugi gasps as the new sight floods his vision. The moment he adjusts, he sees Himuro's patterns clearly and moves in sync with Makoto. When Himuro swings at Wasugi's head, Wasugi ducks and counters with an upward slash, forcing Himuro to block as Makoto swoops in from the side. The rhythm of their teamwork changes the tide, and Himuro starts to notice it as his smirking, confident grin falters, realizing they read his every move. He jumps back, creating distance between them, and raises his hand to warn them not to get too cozy. Wasugi narrows his eyes as he realizes what Himuro is about to do. Himuro says that he will end this fight with his ultimate move. Wasugi shouts that he will not let him do so. It shakes the ground as Himuro summons a tremendous ice dragon whose chilling roar shakes the air, where Wasugi summons one of his own. The two dragons collide in midair, resulting in a blinding explosion that sends shockwaves through the battlefield. By the time the smoke clears, Wasugi's dragon has been shattered into shards of frost, with Himuro standing tall and laughing victoriously. But the laughter dies the moment a shadow spreads from beneath his feet. Makoto steps out from the darkness, his shadow sense having shown him where Himuro would eventually stand after the attack. He had foreseen this moment with perfection. Before Himuro can realize what is going on, both Makoto and Wasugi appear behind him, their blades shining. Himuro whips around in utter disbelief, asking how they were able to get there, but neither of them says a word as their eyes lock with him, grave and unblinking. In one swift and sure movement, they cut through together, their blades slicing through the control device, fueling Himuro's power. Himuro stumbles as sparks fly from his body, falling to the ground. Uesugi catches him before he hits the floor, looking down with an anguished expression. He says he respected Himuro's freedom and the way he thought, but is sad that he chose such a crooked path. Addressing him as master one last time, Uesugi says quietly, "It is the end." Makoto stands beside him, silently watching as the tension of the fight dissipates. He thinks, though, that no human is perfect, not even someone as powerful as Himuro, but still gets to choose to walk the right path again. With that thought, he and Rinoa will always try to follow the right path. Outside, Uesugi scrolls along his device, saying that the association should be here soon to take Himuro into custody. Nearby, Himuro sits restrained, ice covering his mouth, hands, and feet, unable to move. Makoto nods, saying that it's for the best. Uesugi turns to him, admitting that he couldn't have won without his help, and thanks him sincerely, offering his hand. Makoto takes it, waving off the praise with a small grin, joking that it's hilarious being thanked twice in one day. A few moments later, the enforcement officers arrive, securing Himuro and confirming the arrest. As they bow to acknowledge this mission's success, Makoto lets himself start to relax until another officer suddenly snatches him from behind, confused. Makoto looks up as another man steps into the circle, explaining calmly that he has suspicion of Makoto having relations with a demon and must come along for questioning. The tension once more shifts around them, heavy now with new weight, as this next chapter of the story begins to unfold. The next morning, at the Tokyo Hunter Association, Makoto enters, restricted by divine handcuffs, looking like some criminal from a holy soap opera. A team of hunters escorts him down the hallway. Their footsteps echo off the polished floor. He keeps calm and politely asks Hayashi where they are going, to which Hayashi replies that they are headed to the conference room, which will decide what to do with him. Not exactly how he wants to start off the morning, but Makoto keeps his expression calm, though the hunter's suspicion from the day before keeps replaying in his head. The chaos that unfolded yesterday clearly didn't leave a good impression, and everyone's eyes on him feel heavier than the cuffs on his wrists. Hayashi reminds him to mind his manners, as if he's some school kid about to face the principal. Inside, Makoto sees Amagi and Kamuro already seated, along with two senior hunters. Amagi greets him with a wave that seems just a bit too bright for the situation, while Kamuro stares at him with an unreadable expression. The two hunters on the opposite side, however, glare at Makoto like he spilled coffee on their favorite jackets. Kamuro leads the conference regarding the abnormal incident, and on the screen in front of them, footage of Makoto's dungeon fight plays. It shows him helping Uesugi take down Himuro, but the mood in the room gets colder as one mentions the problem of Makoto's involvement with a demon. Renji Niyama, Anti-Abnormality Division Chief, steps forward and says they'll be deciding the right punishment for him, then directly asks if he has a contract with a demon. Considering that Renji probably knows it, there's no use in lying, says Makoto, and calls Rinoa. Immediately after appearing, the room changes. Her existence fills the air with divine pressure. A hunter freezes, and one completely loses his composure, pointing at her and shouting that she isn't just a demon, but a Magin, that he will erase her right now. His power surges immediately, but before even one blink of the eye, a spatial rift opens and swallows his attack whole. Amagi steps in, half annoyed, half amused, telling him to calm down because the meeting has barely started. Tsubasa Notori, an S-rank hunter with zero patience, scoffs and says all this talk is a waste of time, or if he likes, he can just erase Amagi first. And in an instant, tension shoots sky high, so thick it could slice the air. But after a very long silence, Tsubasa sits back down, grumbling that they should at least hear him out first. Renji orders Makoto to explain himself, and Makoto tells them that Rinoa isn't a Magin but a fallen divine spirit who turned into a demon. The revelation leaves the whole room in shock. Tsubasa laughs in disbelief, claiming that he has never heard anything like this. Floating next to Amagi, Nova leans forward and says she's heard rumors of divine spirits falling before and turning into a demon. Amagi asks her to share it with the room, to which she does. Her calm tone softens the tension a bit, and Amagi nods, thanking her before asking the room if there's still any doubt about Rinoa's identity. Tsubasa is stubborn, saying that even if she used to be divine, she's still a demon, and their duty as hunters hasn't changed. Renji turns to how Rinoa became what she is, demanding an answer from her. Rinoa says she fell, but won't say how, and such vagueness makes Tsubasa slam the table. He says that one cannot trust a human who conceals secrets. Renji agrees that keeping her around could be hazardous. But before things spiral completely out of control, Makoto steps up and claims that Rinoa is not a threat. Renji counters smoothly, asking if Makoto can truly guarantee that. The silence that hangs feels heavy, and Makoto's confidence falters, thinking of a way to prove that. Suddenly, the door bursts open, and a woman strolls in, yawning as if she has just woken from the best nap of her life. She sweetly apologizes for coming late, blaming it on her bed for being too comfortable. Renji sighs and addresses her as Himeji Kazuka, telling her he said to come on time. Carefree, she shrugs and tells him to blame it on the bed instead, making Amagi chuckle quietly. She asks what the meeting is about, and Amagi nonchalantly says it is about Makoto, the hunter who made a contract with a demon. Kazuka whistles. It sounds heavy. She then looks toward the door and asks about the two people standing outside. Amagi smiles and says she's timely. He calls them in, and to everyone's surprise, Wasugi and Kazane enter. Renji immediately questions Amagi's intention for letting outsiders in, but Amagi simply states that Wasugi and Kazane are deeply related to the case. Komuro nods, saying that they should at least be able to say something, and the two hunters step forward beside Makoto. Standing tall amidst the tense atmosphere, Wasugi starts off by saying that they never would have stopped Himuro without the help of Makoto or Rinoa's power. Kazan chimes in support, stating that she fought alongside both, and that Rinoa's actions proved she was not dangerous. She points out that someone who risks herself to protect others cannot be evil. Accordingly, she and Wasugi bow deep, begging for understanding. It sends shockwaves through the room, and even Renji looks shocked that Kazane, notorious for hating demons, would defend one. Amagi smirks and says that if even Kazan trusts her, that says something. Then he asks if the room doesn't believe that Makoto and Rinoa might be their ticket to defeating the demons. Tsubasa rolls his eyes at him and tells him not to make up idealistic things, giving to the fact that the chance of them betraying them is higher. But Amagi replies coolly that if betrayal does happen, it will be their job to handle. The simple confidence behind his voice shuts Tsubasa up. As Makoto looks over at him, silently grateful, Renji finally calls for a decision. He and Tsubasa vote for disciplinary action, while Amagi and Kazuka vote against. Tsubasa glares at Kazuka for taking Amagi's side, but she just shrugs, saying it's rare to see Amagi fight for someone, and she respects that kind of friendship. Her playful tone makes Tsubasa even more furious. Renji then proceeds to Komuro for the final say. After a long moment, Komuro looks at Makoto and Rinoa, his eyes tranquil yet piercing. He says he will decide after hearing their intentions. Rinoa explains that she made the contract because she wanted to save Makoto, whose heart was weighed down by pain. She adds that she considers the demons her enemies too, and she wants to fight them together with him. Komuro nods, then faces Makoto. Makoto meets Rinoa's eyes and says that his aim is to stop unnecessary loss of life, and he will fight to protect both humans and spirits. He asks Komuro to use them for the world's sake. Amagi and Kazuka exchange approving looks, while Tsubasa and Renji seem discontented. After a brief silence, Komuro finally says that he has reached his decision, and the room holds its breath, waiting for what comes next. After a long silence, Komuro finally says that he has made his decision, and the room instantly goes silent. Everyone waits for the president's judgment, the tension thick enough to cut through. After an attentive moment, he declares that for now, Makoto and Rinoa will continue their activities under the supervision of the Hunter Association. The statement stuns most of the hunters, except Amagi, who smirks like he already knew this would happen. On the other hand, Tsubasa looks like someone just told him vegetables were back on the menu. He demands an explanation, not believing the old man would let this slide so easily. Calm and a bit tired, Komuro says that he saw value in Makoto's actions and that the association still has something to gain from him. He adds that when he looked into Makoto's eyes and heard his words, he saw no lies, only determination. And since no one can fool his eyes, his decision stays. Tsubasa clicks his tongue, but accepts it. Komuro proceeds with the conditions. Firstly, he wants the fallen angel to tell them everything she knows about the Magin, their power, and how many there are. Secondly, Makoto and Rinoa will be rebuilding their reputation by bringing in demons to subjugate and then presenting them to the association for them to gain their trust. It's an offer he can't refuse, so he immediately nods, giving a deep bow of gratitude. With that, the discussion of the details of Rinoa's knowledge of the enemy commences. Because it is confidential, Wasugi and Kazane are asked to leave the room. She states that her information is pretty scarce, but what she does know is that there are around 100 Magin. Their society has ranks much like the Hunters, but the number itself already leaves everyone in shock when Renoa makes matters worse, by adding that several of them are on the same level as Amagi. Some faces lose color, but Kamuro remains composed, confidently saying that they'll find a way to handle it. Then she says something even more concerning. The Magin follow a king-like leader. She doesn't know much about this being, only that its existence is certain. Kamuro agrees that this is indeed crucial information, but Renji asks where she got the information from. The room starts to feel a great deal heavier as she continues to explain further. Since her banishment from the Divine Realm, she was captured by the Magin and taken to their base, where they invited her to join their ranks. Downright overwhelmed by the number of them, she found them to be more organized than any demon faction she had ever heard of. They attempted to indoctrinate her, but before they could fully corrupt her, she managed to break free from them. Kamuro asks her why they invaded the human realm. What she has come to understand has unsettled her. Demons have requirements such as sustenance and rest, but their instincts drive them to conquer and dominate. However, the Magin are different. With intellect and reason, this means their attacks are premeditated with a purpose. If it is under the command of a king, then the invasion is not random. It is a tactical move. The realization sends a chill throughout the room. Tsubasa, to the contrary, does not look scared. Instead, he looks excited. He says that if the Magin are invading human peace for such selfish reasons, then it will be pleasing to crush their plans. His grin shows that he is looking forward to the challenge. Amagi crosses his arms, stating that fighting smart demons under the rule of a king actually sounds interesting. A spark of anticipation crosses the room despite the grim news. Kamuro nods and says that Renoa's information has definitely become valuable, and thanks her because they may need to get in contact with her again soon in case more details are needed. The goal, while there is danger, remains the same: to fight for and to protect humanity from the demons. For now, Makoto is to stay in custody in the association for both security and observation. The final decision will later be announced, but in any case, everybody agrees it's safer to keep him within headquarters. Kamuro also warns him that, due to his contract with a demon, rumors and insults are bound to spread, so he must prove his worth through results. In order to start rebuilding trust, he's assigned to gain merit by clearing demon portals, a task that fits his current F rank. Himeji remembers that the next official evaluation is still months away. However, Kamuro, who by now is visibly more energetic since hearing Renoa's report, says he is too impatient to wait. He announces there is going to be a special re-evaluation for Makoto right now. The other hunters burst into laughter, and it seems they are used to such erratic mood swings on the part of the old man. Amagi is loud, claiming that this is one of Kamuro's bad habits, others suddenly feeling pity on him like he's about to get cooked. Makoto, taken aback, cannot tell if they are serious or just teasing, and before he knows it, Kamuro smacks him on the shoulder and hauls him toward the training hall. The next thing Makoto knows, he is standing in the arena and staring at the head of the association, who is holding a radiant blade bathed in divine energy. Kamuro says that since this is a special case, Makoto must fight him directly to prove his worth. The idea itself sounds insane, but the old man promises to hold back to only a tenth or two of his full power. That does not exactly let Makoto feel any more at ease, but there's no room for an argument. As Kamuro's divine spirit manifests, the air shifts, blazing with power so bright the pressure crushes down on him, and he cannot help but wonder if this really is the same old man that smiled so gently just minutes ago. The two face each other like light and shadow, and the other hunters gather around, eager to see how strong the so-called demon wielder really is. Kamuro explains the final condition: Makoto only needs to land a single hit. If not, then he will immediately be expelled from the Hunter Association. Makoto's face drops as if he thinks this has got to be a joke, but the chairman tells him he does not joke in moments like this. In an instant, the fight begins. Kamuro closes the distance between them before Makoto can even blink and strikes him right in the chest, slamming him into the wall. His bones rattle from the impact, yet somehow he manages to rise, clenching his sword tighter. A single blow and he feels like he has been run over by some divine truck. Yet he does not give up. Kamuro keeps a cautious eye on him, wondering if Makoto's words about protecting humanity earlier were mere babble. Makoto finally clenches his teeth and raises his sword, his arms shaking all over. The air in the field cracks with energy as he readies himself for his next clash. Makoto's heartbeat quickens at the thought of everyone who came to his side. He knows this is not just about rank, but proof that he belongs here. Barely able to stand, Makoto continues the battle. His hands are numb, and he can't believe the chairman was holding back. Kamuro overflows with power and tells him to fight without hesitation. With no other choice, he does as told, and charges forward with determination. For now, he starts by binding the opponent with chains, revealing the ability for the first time. The young man jumps, making his sword unstoppable, at least in this situation. As he brings the blade down, a gap between them becomes clear as the chairman catches it between his fingers, saying they are superficial attacks. Thrown to the ground, he is left breathless. At this rate, he won't be able to land a single hit, determined to prove himself. Makoto backs away for now, trying to regain his balance. Meanwhile, Komuro breaks the chains, asking if he has anything else to offer. While all this is happening, a bottle of alcohol is opened. Amagi drinks it, enjoying the fight with the others, who have mixed feelings about the show. Himeji saying it's nostalgic because she was also badly beaten at the beginning, while Tsubasa is even surprised that he is holding back, saying he should return to the front lines. Without moving, Makoto thinks intensely, wondering how he can land a blow. Tired of how long it's taking, the chairman decides to go on the attack. His movements are intense, and the old man closes the distance in an instant, summoning his shining sword. Once again, he swings, and the target is well aware. Blocking the attack is not an option. With nothing else to do, he jumps away at the last moment. The slash almost hits him, cutting the fabric on his chest. With that done, the old man swings his arm as much as possible to make the attack double as a proper test. He praises the hunter's reaction and tells him to keep up the pace. He continues to swing, giving the opponent no chance to counterattack. His attacks are heavy and consecutive, but if all he does is keep dodging, he'll end up losing the fight anyway. Knowing this is true, Makoto tries to gain distance first and transforms his shadow weapon into a firearm. While the chairman is surprised by the change, the audience is amused, finding the fight more and more exciting. The shooter wonders if he landed a hit, but his eyes widen in surprise. A huge shield covers the opponent's body, and Komuro praises him for forcing the equipment to appear. He still wonders when and where the shield was pulled from. However, this leads the chairman to go further and summon a long spear. His divine spirit ability is armory, which allows him to switch weapons at will. Having multiple weapons at his disposal is already problematic, but it's obvious that none of them are normal. His spirit, Yulan, is the god of weapons, and allows him to use heroic equipment as much as he wants. In other words, the chairman is the strongest melee fighter in the association. With this revelation, they proceed to the second round. Using a firearm against a lancer is risky, so he switches back to his sword. Komuro points out that the armory ability is similar to the shadow materialization skills. Intrigued, the chairman charges forward, curious to see how he will counter the armory. Makoto fights against the series of thrusts, while the power is combined with the long range of the spear. At that moment, his eyes notice something. Something shines, and he reacts instinctively, deflecting the axis thrown in his direction. He is able to use his ability in this way. 2. Komuro continues and smashes a huge hammer on the ground. Seeing the enormous weapon, he notices the form starting to dissipate. Makoto retreats and jumps high to avoid the blow of a sharp axe. While in the air, the weapon changes again, and now becomes a bow and arrow. With no chance to breathe, he does his best to stay alive. Meanwhile, Amagi notices what is happening and praises the chairman for being a great instructor. The hunter cuts the arrow in half. Now the two face each other again. Speaking with Renoa, he says he also noticed something while watching the chairman fight. Armory gives an advantage regardless of the opponent. That's why he wanted Makoto to observe. Komuro charges again, asking what he will do now since he is using a sword. The young hunter learns from him and summons a spear, which is the natural counter to a swordsman. However, this won't be enough. Just as Komuro wants to switch to a spear at the last second, Makoto changes his weapon once more, allowing him to advance without being hindered. At that moment, he summons a much smaller dagger and uses the minimal distance to slide it into his opponent's chest. Everyone is shocked by the maneuver that allows him to tear the chairman's shirt, even if just a little. He successfully and meticulously exploits the delay in his opponent's equipment swap. Panting and exhausted, Makoto awaits their decision. Using a spear up close is difficult, so he aimed for the opening. Landing the perfect blow, the boy finishes the exam with intelligence. The hunter almost falls to his knees, exhausted from the test, which was demanding as he was guided the whole time he is asked about how he would overcome certain situations. Besides his agile movements, he uses his head well on the battlefield. Being advised to improve himself even further, the reevaluation concludes, and he receives a B- rank. For now, it's a big jump, but the decision is also considered due to his future. Now filled with newfound determination, Makoto vows to grow stronger. Just then, Amagi appears from behind, saying it was a thorough evaluation, but adding that he still has a long way to go, at least in terms of skill. Knowing this is true and that he's still far from where they are, Makoto calls out to the S rank, burning with a passion to become stronger. He asks for mentorship, bowing and saying he is seeking guidance. Amagi smiles as things are going as expected so far, since he was already thinking of training him. The hunter accepts the request and awaits his growth. Amagi sits across from Makoto with their divine spirits as he suggests that they try the same training he and Nova did years ago. Hunters usually borrow the power of their spirits, and by learning how to connect better with them, they are able to utilize their power more efficiently. Makoto asks if this can work for him and Rinoa since she is a demon, but Amagi answers that this rule applies to them too. Since their contracts are bound to divine stones, there shouldn't be any issues. Plus, converting divine power into mana is possible, which sounds great for Rinoa because she has a massive mana pool. The problem is that she can't fully control it yet. But with the training, she might finally be able to handle that power, and he would be way stronger than he is. Makoto gets all excited as he listens, telling Amagi that he is ready for his guidance and training. Amagi then mentions that the main part of this training involves holding hands while clearing dungeons. Both of them freeze for a second, wondering if he's joking, but he's dead serious. The next day, they head out to an F-rank dungeon. Hand in hand, they walk in, ready to start the mission. Makoto asks Rinoa if she is used to this, but she reminds him to focus and says, "There's nothing weird about it. Their rule is simple. They can't talk during fights and must never let go until they're done. They have to do this through every dungeon up to C rank, and Makoto wonders if they will get stronger just by doing this." Makoto resolves that he shouldn't let his guard down and begins to observe the monsters first before attacking. But Rinoa suddenly points at a group of monsters and drags him forward. Before he can even react, he's pulled face first into the dirt as she rushes ahead. She motions to him that they have to defeat them fast, but Makoto argues that they should study their targets first. They barely dodge the monsters as they attack, moving awkwardly since they keep pulling each other in opposite directions. He almost trips from her sudden movements, and while dodging is easy, fighting while tied to someone's hand definitely isn't because they are out of sync. To fix the mess, Makoto summons his shadow weapon and clears the monsters in one swing. Once the fight is over, he complains that she moves to fight too soon, but she fires back that he's too slow. Both have good points, but it's clear their styles completely clash. Before they can argue more, another wave of enemies appears because they didn't finish fast enough. They look at each other and decide to stop bickering, charging forward again. Their teamwork still looks rough, but at least they're trying. 2 weeks later, they finally reach the C-rank dungeon's boss room. After fighting side by side for so long, they're used to the hand-holding thing, but their fighting rhythm still isn't perfect. Still, this is their biggest challenge yet, and they know they'll have to give it their all. They agree that syncing their moves isn't what matters most. Understanding each other is. Inside, a massive legacy golem stands waiting. The monster's roar shakes the entire place, but Rinoa instantly calls it the perfect target and drags Makoto with her into battle. He swings his shadow hammer with full strength, but the golem's rocky skin barely cracks. Rinoa charges again without hesitation, but their disagreement gets them both thrown across the floor as the boss attacks. Makoto can barely move as they try to get back up. Then he notices Rinoa's expression, sharp and determined. She clearly has a plan, but he doesn't know what it is. Still, when she squeezes his hand tightly, he understands. She's asking him to trust her, so he lets go of his doubts and follows her lead as the golem charges again. They dodge in perfect sync this time, counter-attacking together. His hammer hits the golem's chest, revealing a glowing orb inside, the weak spot. Thanks to Rinoa's direction, they finally found it. Rinoa moves to finish it off, but Makoto pulls her back. She spins around, confused, until she sees his serious face. Now it's his turn to ask her to trust him. She hesitates but then nods, understanding what he means. They retreat just in time to avoid a massive energy blast. For once, she realizes his slower approach actually saves them from taking unnecessary hits. As the golem rises again, they're ready this time. Their movements sync naturally now, like they've finally figured each other out. Dodging every swing, Makoto lands a heavy counterattack that pushes the monster back. They keep the pressure on, attacking in perfect rhythm, almost like a dance. If he had come alone, this fight would have been impossible, and if she didn't have him, she'd probably have fallen early on. Now fully trusting each other, Makoto summons his shadow sword. Together they leap high, combining their strength for one final strike. The sword crashes down, slicing straight through the golem and shattering the crystal orb inside. The monster collapses with a loud crash, their victory echoing through the dungeon. Makoto cheers and raises his hand for a high five, but Renoa just stares, completely confused. He sighs, shrugging it off since he expected that reaction anyway. Later that night, Amagi sits at a bar when the doorbell rings. Amagi notices a presence and asks how he knew about it. Makoto walks in, saying the chairman told him this is where his mentor usually drinks. Amagi chuckles as he turns to face him. The young hunter thanks him, saying his training helped more than he imagined. His mana control has improved so much that even Amagi looks surprised compared to 3 days ago. His progress has skyrocketed beyond expectations. Proud of his student's progress, Amagi hands him a drink. He tells Makoto that an email came in, asking him to go to a B-rank dungeon. A few hours ago, in the association meeting room, Mishima reports on the detection of a large portal almost identical to a normal dungeon but on a much larger scale, saying that this one might need more hunters than usual to deal with whatever is inside. Renji turns to the president and asks for his opinion, to which he calmly tells Mishima to start selecting hunters, then asks about the dungeon's rank. Upon learning it is a B rank, a grin stretches across his face as if a plan has just formed in his head. He personally recommends one particular hunter without wasting time, claiming that this person will no doubt achieve something great. Renji notices that look, and he already has an idea of whom he might be thinking about. Mishima asks who it is, then Komuro opens up Makoto's hunter file, his face showing clearly on the screen, like he's going to be G.I. Joe for the mission. The next day, on the outskirts of Kanto Prefecture, several hunters gather around a huge portal that hums with unstable energy. The swirling mass of colors feels like a storm ready to explode, and the ground trembles slightly beneath their feet. It's the first time Makoto has ever seen this many people gathered just for one dungeon, and the atmosphere is tense enough to make him feel ill at ease. Hunters stand in groups, adjusting weapons and checking gear while chatting about strategies. Suddenly, someone spots him from across the crowd and yells at him, pointing in his direction. The mood instantly shifts as he asks him how he dares to come here, recognizing him as the guy who once made a deal with a demon. In an instant, the tension builds fast, and soon a number of them surround him, their faces full of anger and resentment. The other hunter says that he betrayed not only the association, but also all those who lost their families to demons. The words pierce deeper than the heat of the portal, and though Makoto wants to argue, he realizes it will amount to nothing. From their point of view, he did the unforgivable. Instead of arguing, he remains silent, because talking back would just worsen things. Verbal insults continue as they call him trash and question why someone like him is even needed for a raid like this. Renoa, standing beside him, looks infuriated, asking if it's all right to let them talk that way. But Makoto shakes his head, telling her this is part of the job and they'd better focus on the mission. Things turn ugly, though, when one of the hunters loses control and fires an arrow made of pure electricity right at him. Makoto quickly raises his sword to deflect it, but before the attack reaches him, a wall of water forms out of nowhere, blocking the arrow with a splash. Everyone is frozen, appalled at what just happened. A commanding voice rings through the crowd, telling everyone to stop. The crowd opens up, revealing a tall woman with long silver hair and calm blue eyes. It's Sarah. She walks forward, her authority silencing the chaos in an instant. Sarah scolds the group for fighting between hunters, turning to Makoto and apologizing on their behalf as the raid organizer, adding that she is counting on him today. Makoto shakes her hand and returns the greeting. She smiles and tells everybody to focus on the job at hand instead of past issues. It is then that the tension slowly fades as she begins assigning roles to the team, her voice firm yet calm. Sarah is an A-rank hunter known across the association, not only for her strength, but for her online presence as a famous influencer with about 3 million followers. She may be cheerful, but it is expected of an A-rank hunter. One of the other hunters, a quiet guy with sharp eyes, lingers behind as the rest prepare. He continues to glance at Makoto, as if he were trying to figure him out. After a while, the group plunges directly into the dungeon. Immediately after entering, the temperature rises steeply, and the air becomes thin and dry. Having made their way for some time, they come to the edge of a great cliff, yawning deeply into darkness. The bottom is filled with countless growling demons that move restlessly, their shining eyes like stars in the dark. Sarah studies the cliff carefully. She takes a deep breath in an effort to convince herself that her judgment is right, then asks the earth and water users to build a bridge fast before the demons notice them. She then turns to Makoto, asking him to keep watch from the edge to make sure the enemies below don't start climbing up. He nods and moves to the front, scanning the pit below. The air feels heavy, almost as if the dungeon itself is alive and watching them. Makoto focuses, oblivious that behind his back, the expressions of his teammates gradually start to change. As he watches the cliff, her fingers snap, a signal the hunters have been waiting for the whole time. In an instant, several hunters grab Makoto, binding his arms tightly. He resists, but there are too many of them. In frustration and anger, he asks what's going on. Sarah looks at him coldly and says everyone has decided that it would be safer if he didn't emerge from the dungeon. Being someone who made a pact with a demon makes him a danger to everyone. Without any hesitation, they drag him closer to the edge. He can still hear Renoa's voice in his head, but before he can act, they push him off the cliff. The world spins as he falls fast, the sounds of laughter echoing from above as they reason that with that many B-rank demons, even an A-rank hunter can't survive. Joking to check on the corpse later, Sarah peers down with a face completely devoid of emotion, her voice barely a whisper as she says, this is the best choice she could make for the team, saying she is sorry. He falls toward the ground as images flash before his eyes. The first time he was ever betrayed, when he had just met Renoa, that helpless feeling returning once again, and his carelessness to trust easily. When all seems to be over, a light flashes brightly beside him. Renoa's wings expand as she swoops through the air, yelling for him to leave the fall to her. Focusing again, Makoto extends his hands forward, and dark chains explode from his palms, clamping into the walls and stopping his fall. Breathing heavily, he hangs there, the chains deeply carved into the stone beneath him. The earth quakes as demons roar, sensing prey above. He knows if he slips, it's over, but he's not the same person he once was. Renoa hovers nearby, her expression determined. They both know what to do. Releasing the chains, he drops down safely, landing among the swarm. Above, the silent hunter still in his spot watches with wide eyes as he beholds the scene. He mumbles that he must hurry, but suddenly doubts himself, not knowing what to do. Below, Makoto continues fighting without letting up. Every hit comes cleaner than the one before, and his focus never wavers. His management of mana and stamina is far better now, and though surrounded, he doesn't cower. He smirks a bit as another demon falls, proud of how far he's come. Renoa mentions that they used to have difficulties facing demons like this before, but Makoto replies that they are better now because of their training. Meanwhile, the observer, amazed by Makoto's movements, loses his footing. The cliff edge breaks, and he tumbles down, crashing into the ground near Makoto. Groaning in pain, he looks up just in time to see a group of demons charging straight at him. He tries to crawl away, screaming, but they corner him quickly. Just when it seems over, Makoto jumps in front of him, slicing the demons apart in one swift motion. Dust and blood fill the air as the last creature falls. The young hunter stares at him in disbelief, his body shaking. Makoto looks down at him calmly and asks who he is. The battlefield quiet around them, the sound of his voice cutting through the silence like the end of a storm. Makoto, safe from the demons, is thanked by the hunter for coming to his aid. He introduces himself as Yuki, a name recognized as the youngest person to become a hunter. He mistakenly says that he didn't expect her to be a girl, but is quickly corrected because of her appearance. Even Renoa can't believe it. Fortunately, her partner explains that this kind of misunderstanding happens sometimes. Moving on, Makoto remembers that Yuki called his name and wonders how he knows him. The young man knew him even before he made a contract back then. He would watch him train tirelessly, no matter the situation, and Makoto gets embarrassed hearing that someone actually admired him so much. During this time, worrying after Makoto was thrown from the cliff, Yuki accidentally fell while watching. Makoto invites him to join them, saying it must be fate somehow. The young man happily accepts his hand and they team up. A while later, the hunter chains several demons and takes down the last group of enemies, while the boy can't contain a sigh of admiration, mesmerized by his movements. Meanwhile, the shadow hunter is satisfied and starts to feel more confident in his abilities. The boy wonders how he fought alone and asks what he needs to do to be that strong. Renoa reveals that they conquer more dungeons while holding hands, trying to clarify the phrase that could be easily misinterpreted. He explains that it's for their compatibility, then asks what divine spirit the rookie has. Suddenly self-conscious, the boy says the name Kafka, the spirit of explosion. This is completely different from what they expected given his shy demeanor. He wanted to help from the beginning, but was afraid of making a mistake and getting in their way. Some time ago, he used his abilities on a mission, but almost killed his comrades due to an accident. Even small movements made them worried, and they angrily rejected him. He shudders at the memory, and Makoto apologizes for making him recall the pain. Kafka stays close to his partner, seemingly comforting him. The trauma caused by using an ability is not easy to overcome. The older hunter comforts him, saying he must have done his best all this time. In the end, he promises that his efforts won't betray him. Besides, just wanting to help his comrades is already a sufficient feeling. For him, who had never heard such words before, his respect for his idol only grows with new determination. He wipes his tears and thanks Makoto. Now he promises to pay him back and be his strength. Relieved to have someone else by his side, Makoto nods and smiles faintly. 10 hours after entering the dungeon, the hunters reach the top of the mountain where they get stuck in an intense battle with the boss. Working together, they finalize the preparations and run to hide behind Sarah. He charges at her, and with her high-class spirit, she invokes her power. Jets of water shoot from above, impaling the powerful enemy and ending its life for good. Just like that, the dungeon is successfully conquered and everyone cheers at the complete subjugation. She turns to check if anyone was injured. Suddenly, black magic appears from above, the violent energy shaking them to the bone before landing nearby and emerging from a black portal. A sinister presence steps out of it. After entering the dungeon, the demon complains about the mana needed to get there. Realizing what it is, the hunters go on high alert. Despite its appearance, the demon seems quite sloppy, which leads the others to underestimate it. Feeling overconfident, they advance, wanting to clear a path for their leader. They are so focused on victory that they ignore her warnings to stop. In that instant, they are thrown far away, dead. The gravity of the situation becomes clear as the demon complains that they are weak, too weak for people who just defeated the boss. He points to Sarah, saying she must be the leader, and challenges her to a fight. Aware of the danger, she orders everyone to leave immediately, and they obey, fearing for their own lives. Meanwhile, the demon introduces himself as Jaga and asks her to do the same, but the huntress refuses, saying there's no need for her to answer a demon. With her attack flying in his direction, he decides to make her talk by force, quickly dealing with her water jets while she is surprised the huntress takes a knee to the stomach and is thrown against a wall. Now, Jaga is on top of her and gives her another chance to introduce herself. Unfortunately, her pride and resentment speak louder, and she responds by insulting him. Since he can't get a proper answer, he gathers black mana in his palm and tells her to die instead. A red light shines on his face, and just as he is about to strike, black familiar chains pull his arm away, saving her in time. Makoto appears with Renoa and prepares to fight. Makoto leaps forward with his chains glowing purple as he goes to attack Jaga, but Jaga breaks the chains off. The bystanders are shocked at the situation as they wonder how Makoto survived from that fall. Makoto orders Yuki to take Katusara to a safer place, and Yuki firmly agrees. Katusara questions Makoto on why he is helping her when she tricked him and tried to kill him. Makoto replies that he thinks this is the right choice to make. Katusara stares back in shock as Yuki begs her to move slowly. The fight between Jaga and Makoto begins as Jaga lets out a laugh. Jaga recalls Makoto's shadow abilities and Renoa, the fallen angel by his side, as he realizes that Makoto is the human everyone was talking about and continues laughing. Jaga tells Makoto to hurry up so they can end it quickly as he leaps forward with his claws and clashes with Makoto's shadow sword. The impact creates a wave of ripples as Jaga decides to attack with his leg. Makoto reacts quickly and shoots out his shadow chains from his hand. The chains tie up Jaga and Makoto leans in for a slash with his sword. As the sword nears Jaga's neck, he lets out a grin and falls back to dodge the attack. Jaga delivers a kick to Makoto, but Makoto is able to stop Jaga's leg with his chains and forms a gun with his shadow abilities. The sound of the gun is loud and heard by all the bystanders. Jaga commends Makoto, telling him that this is fun. A bystander wonders how Makoto is fighting so normally. Katusara is also amazed that Makoto is evenly matched with the demon she could not even touch. Yuki thinks to herself that there is nothing she can do right now because she would only get in the way if she joins the fight. She decides to endure it as she watches Jaga's claw clash again with Makoto's sword. Jaga gathers energy in his palm and asks Makoto if he can dodge the attack. Jaga finishes charging up the move called Dark Extreme and unleashes a giant red beam blast. The blast sends a huge shockwave around the dungeon. Jaga snaps as a voice is heard from behind him, belonging to Makoto, who tells Jaga that he needs to create more openings if he is going to use a big move. Makoto delivers a fatal blow to Jaga, who is left shocked as the attack hits and blood spills out. Makoto's face fills with determination as Renoa says that Makoto is still watching closely. Katusara is amazed as she doubts that this is a B-rank dungeon and says that Makoto is super cool. Makoto says that Jaga is weaker than Grom and that he will end it here as he raises his sword for the final attack. As the attack is about to land, Jaga makes one last move called Red Dead Blood Death Law, which summons a wall of blood that stops the attack. Makoto's face fills with shock as spikes appear from the wall. The spikes begin to shoot out as Makoto leaps backward to avoid them. Makoto realizes that this is blood manipulation and wonders if this is what they call a demon's ability. Jaga tells Makoto that his guess is correct as demons each have one unique ability called dark arts. He continues by saying that it has been a while since he was forced to use this ability, and that Makoto is truly the human. Grom has his eyes on Makoto fills with shock as he hears the name Grom. He asks if Jaga is Grom's subordinate or something similar. Jaga replies affirmatively as he boldly proclaims that he is a faithful subordinate who worships Grom, whom he refers to as Grom-sama, and says that he will teach Makoto something extra. He continues saying that demons are divided from lower class to special class, just like Makoto's divine spirits. He says that right now Grom is middle class, but will eventually become special class, and that someone like him is only lower class. But he tells Makoto not to underestimate him based on rank. Yuki thinks to herself that Grom is middle class and Jaga is lower class, even at this level. Jaga laughs and asks if they despair because he is in a lower class as he decides to start round 2. Makoto gets ready to engage as he begins shaping the shadow into a weapon. He dashes forward while the weapon still forms in his hand. The shadow morphs into a hammer as Jaga states that this side of the wall is more effective in terms of shield hardness. Makoto slams the wall, but it doesn't break, and Jaga asks if Makoto can use his shadow abilities like this. Jaga reminds Makoto that he told him not to underestimate him earlier. Makoto jumps back and begins shaping his shadow again, asking if Jaga can keep up with this. Jaga thinks to himself that he can't tell if it is a sword or a hammer because Makoto is just gripping shadows. He adds that being smart is troublesome too. Makoto reaches Jaga as he finally forms a sword and unleashes a wave of attacks which damages Jaga. Jaga lets out a shout saying that this is so annoying. The bystanders watch in awe as Yuki says that Makoto is pushing forward. Jaga stands with blood spilling from his body and lets out an evil laugh. With a smile, he says that he has thought of something good. He unleashes a wave of blood that ties up all the bystanders, and Makoto calls him out for using cowardly tactics, but Jaga says that it is already too late. Katusara begins to panic, saying that this is bad and she is going to get hit. She closes her eyes as blood splatters on her face, but it is not hers. She opens her eyes to see Makoto standing in front of her, bleeding with Jaga's blood spikes piercing across his body. One of the bystanders begs Makoto to save them, while Katusara asks why he would go that far for them. Jaga's whip rises again and ties up Makoto as Yuki shouts his name. Yuki says they need to do something about the whip and remembers how she has been practicing how to control her abilities, but she is still scared. Jaga tells Makoto that trying to protect others is his weakness and calls upon a new move called Red Gale Bloodstorm Blade. Yuki thinks back to Makoto and her hopes of being able to help him as flames erupt from her hand. She raises her hand with flames emitting from it and says that Makoto believed in her and said she would definitely be of help. Yuki decides to save Makoto as she shoots out the flames, leaving both Jaga and Makoto in disbelief. The fire creates an explosion, which fills the dungeon with smoke.